Swordfish. Okay, I guess I don't even need that much. I just need 5. That was really easy, actually. Character gonna go. Okay, cool.
사랑한다고
Okay.
Even though Frank doesn't know me that well at all, I really like to grill with Frank. Grilling some dogs. He's in his hot dog costume. It's Halloween.
Hi, I'm Frank. I'm a professional chef, and this is a $260 pork chop dinner.
Hi, I'm Gabby. I am a home... Even though Frank doesn't know me that well at all, I really like to grill with Frank. Grilling some dogs. He's in his hot dog costume. It's Halloween.
Hi, I'm Frank. I'm a professional chef, and this is a $260 pork chop dinner.
Hi, I'm Gabby. I am a home cook, and this is my $17 pork chop dinner. Ooh.
No!
Ooh. I'm gonna take that.
All right, we can work with that. Beer. I like beer.
Are those saffron strands in the salt? I'm gonna read Frank's diary.
For my dinner, I planned on doing a higher-end dinner with a Spanish theme. I had a really beautiful piece of Iberico pork.
Very, very, very different than my Pennsylvania girl recipe.
Pork is supposed to be fatty, and the fat is what makes it delicious. Fat equals flavor. I had all the ingredients to make a pan paisan with Iberico ham. It's a huge potato cake that you cut into slices.
Pommes paisan. Is that right?
Russet potatoes, clarified butter, unsalted butter,
Double dipping on the butter.
cured Iberico ham,
This is like what you eat on Christmas Day.
Idiazabal cheese.
Hard cheese in that world of Spanish cheeses.
Sticking with the Spanish theme, broccoli rabe with chilies and smoked paprika,
Broccoli rabe kind of thing.
and all topped off with a grilled spring onion vinaigrette.
I don't really know where the vinaigrette goes. Oh, on the pork chop. Okay.
With Gabby's recipe, we have simpler ingredients, things you're more likely to find in the supermarket or in your home.
This dish is very nostalgic for me. My grandmother, she always made me pork chops and scalloped potatoes. I love those memories with her. Oh my God, I have an actual tear sliding down my cheeks. Sorry. I'm a very emotional person if you haven't figured it out yet.
Unsalted butter, russet
I
potato.
love those memories with her. Oh my God, I have an actual tear sliding down my cheeks. Sorry. I'm a very emotional person if you haven't figured it out yet.
Unsalted butter, russet potatoes, garlic, heavy cream, thyme, cheddar cheese, and thank goodness we have some beer.
You gotta have a beer when you cook.
These ingredients are simple, but with some good technique, we can elevate them and make them better. So if I had to guess, this would cost about $18, $19. Pretty close.
I would say all of this is maybe 150. 260. Woo! I'm gonna start with the pomme paisan. Pomme paisan. There's gonna be someone in the comments like, I'm French, she butchered it.
At the end of the day, it's just a beautifully brown potato cake. Butter, potatoes, salt, pepper.
I don't see any additional footnotes for how to exactly put this together, which is a little concerning.
The key to the paisan potatoes is that you are pushing it into the pan. You want no air gap, so you get like this nice filling layer. It's almost like frosting in the middle, but maybe a little more delicious than frosting, of cheese and ham.
Rose and I are gonna have a little chat about these pomme paisan. Oh my gosh, how are you? It's so nice to meet you. Wow, this is such a wonderful...
It is so nice to meet you.
I know most of these ingredients, but there are a couple things I'm super not quite familiar with, and I would love some advice. The pomme paisan.
I think your French sounds perfect. So you're gonna take the matchstick potatoes, a little bit of salt, put them in a pan, press down, and fry them, basically. If you can use a clarified butter, that's a really delicious way to go.
Okay, that's on the list.
Don't rinse your potatoes. You want a nice starchy potato, so I think if you use a russet potato, that will work really well for this.
Perfect.
If it seems like there's water that's coming out, you can squeeze it out and get rid of that water. It sounds like there's definitely a really nice Spanish theme to this.
Yes, I love it.
Good luck. I think you're going to be great at it.
Thank you so much. I gotta go in confident. Start out here so I can end somewhere around here.
Originally, Gabby had planned on making a potatoes au gratin. Basically, a gratin is a dish that you brown stuff in. Cheesy, creamy, comforting. It's a great comfort food, and I think that Gabby had mentioned that it was something she made with her grandmother. I'm gonna get rid of the gratin dish. And I'm gonna use individual foil molds. It's probably gonna be a little smaller than the portion that Gabby served, but worst case scenario, have a second one. You dirty savage.
Obviously, I don't need to use all of this incredible ham, so I'm just gonna eat a little bit while I start shredding my cheese. Start shredding. Yeah, that's plenty. Now I can focus on the taters, as I like to call them. I'm gonna peel them. I don't have the best technique.
So first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna butter these, because I eventually want to get this out. Unsalted butter, I control the salt. Make sure that you get into the corners. So the next thing we're gonna do is potatoes. These are russet potatoes, or Idaho potatoes. I do like potato skins when I roast potatoes, but for this dish, I want it to kind of be a nice blonde white. It's an aesthetic choice. Potatoes like a Yukon Gold are a little more waxy, okay? And we want that starchy potato to hold our gratin together. If you have one of these peelers, there's this little thing here, and what it's there for is if you have an eye of a potato, you just scoop it out and you pop the eye of the potato out.
Is that what this is for? The more you know.
You can see when I peel, I do long strokes. As a chef, you want to be efficient and quick.
These are ready to be turned into matchsticks. My friend, the mandolin, which is one of the most terrifying objects in the kitchen. I'm just gonna be as careful as I possibly can.
We want to use a mandolin to get a nice uniform thickness, and I'm going for about 1/4 of an inch. A couple of things you want to be very, very conscious about is that you're putting your hand in the way of a blade. You're pushing your hand towards a blade.
That's why it says to be careful.
And you don't want to have a bloody gratin.
It's very clunky. This is,
Go over the blade. As I get closer to the blade, I was grabbing the potato, now I flatten out my hand.
I can no longer talk until I am done. I'm gonna start sweating. Sorry I talked, but.
All I'm gonna do with these potatoes is put them into the pot, right? We're gonna cook them right away, okay? I'm gonna get a piece of garlic and you grab it and you throw it across the room. I usually grab this end and twist it a little, and then I just lean on it. If you lean on it, you'll get all the cloves out. Give it a little whack. It's not gonna be overpowering. It goes right into the pot.
My taters are turning a little brown now, so I wanna get them in the pan ASAP. I'm going to use clarified butter. I'm gonna go ahead and give this like a nice hefty pinch of salt. I know Rosemary said to keep it really compressed. We're working harder, not smarter right now. Start putting these potatoes in, and then I'm gonna squish them all down. Make sure I have some for the top. I wanna make sure that I have a really nice, firm bottom layer. I wonder how Frank's doing.
I don't want this to boil, I just want it to simmer. I'm gonna add cream. I'm gonna hit it with some salt. And I did say a little bit of salt, but for the most part, it's a lot of salt. Potatoes are one of those things that people consistently underseason. And again, being the salt master. Black pepper in a white dish. Classical French cooking, cardinal sin. I'm gonna break that rule. I like the kind of sharpness of black pepper. What's gonna happen is as the potatoes cook, they're gonna absorb some of the cream and they're gonna absorb some of the salt.
I'm gonna go ahead and start putting in my cheese over the top here. Look at the fat. Oh, it's amazing. The fat of it already melting, like savory, fatty ice cream. I'm gonna go ahead and add in the rest of my potatoes and tamp those back down. I want these potatoes to be perfect.
Being careful on the bottom. The cream's gonna go from that cream consistency, it's gonna start to get a little thick and bubbly. While I'm waiting this to simmer, I'm gonna put a little bit of thyme, and I'm gonna grate some cheese. We have a sharp cheddar here. It's a great cheese, but you gotta be careful with it in this dish. You have to add it towards the end. You don't wanna bring this cream mixture to a boil with the cheese, because then the cheese breaks and gets oily. What I'll do is I'll cut the cheese. Instead of doing this the granny way style, I turn it on its side, and I push. Right? I find this just to be a little easier than the old way of grating. That's how you grate cheese right.
I wish Frank was part of my family. Can you imagine Frank at Thanksgiving? Frank for the 4th of July on a grill. Frank on Halloween. I really like to imagine Frank in one of those hot dog costumes. He's grilling hot dogs in the hot dog costume. Ah, what a vision.
We got movement. We're simmering away, just a light simmer. We don't want this to boil very hard. You can smell a little garlic, but it's not overpowering. The more you process garlic, the stronger it is. That's why I chose not to chop this. So I'm gonna stop there, and then I'm gonna assemble. You can see that everything's nice and thick and delicious. A little bit of the cheese. I'm gonna overfill these a little. I'm not gonna just kind of fill them to the top. I'm gonna go all the way up past the rim because they will shrink just a little. Some more potatoes. A little bit more cheese. I wonder how Gabby's doing with the Palms Paisan.
I really could use that beer right now.
Thanks, Gabby. so refreshing.
I know at some point this is gonna have to flip, and that's what I'm terrified of. I'm gonna wanna tuck these edges in before I flip it because I don't want them going everywhere. I'm putting the butter on the side so that it slips a little easier. It will also toast those edges a little more. Oh my goodness, it is toasty. This plate will help me in flipping this. Do I want to do this first? We're gonna do this first. I'm gonna go ahead and say Hail Mary. So, take two. Oh my God! I did it! I did it! Look at how pretty it is! It's golden, it's brown.
I'm gonna top all these off so they have plenty of cream in them. The top part is really gonna be the bottom of the gratin. These are gonna go to the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes.
The clarified butter back in. I think that the best approach is just to kind of slide it on in. I could take a breath for the first time since we've started. I'm really excited that it has this crust on the top because I feel like it's just gonna crunch. And then in the middle, you're gonna have that delightful surprise. Oh yeah, I think we're done. Slide this off onto this rack, and then it's gonna drain some of the butter. What a treat. Palm pelaison. Up next is Frank's grilled broccoli rabe, and that terrifies me a little bit. Okay, Frank, let's do this.
Originally, Gabby was going to roast her carrots, but I thought since we have some beer, they're gonna be kind of beer and brown sugar glazed carrots. When I peel carrots, I'm gonna cut the ends off first, okay? And this just makes it a little easier and quicker to peel. Now I can just go with one swipe and get the carrot clean.
Wow, it's like changing before my eyes. Come on out, kids. You're getting pruny into the ice bath. All right, my broccoli rabe is officially all blanched.
We do something called an oblique cut. Turn it like a third of a turn towards you and cut kind of right in the middle of your previous cut. And this gives us kind of like an even carrot cut, even though the carrots aren't even. I'm gonna go directly in the pan. I'm not even turning the pan on yet. You can kind of see that you get this like, almost like a diamond shape. It's, you know, shines bright like a diamond, right? And they'll cook evenly. And we just want to simmer these. I'm gonna take a nice knob of butter. Don't be shy with the butter. This is my drinking beer. I'm keeping this here. I'm gonna cover the carrots. And what's cool about the black and tan, it's got some really nice caramel notes. They're gonna match kind of the sauce up with the carrots. The carrots have some sweetness. This has some caramel flavor, a little bit of salt, and then we have some brown sugar. I think brown sugar highlights those same caramel notes that we have in the beer. Break your butter up. The butter, the sugar, and the beer are going to form the base of our glaze.
I'm gonna make an oil for my broccoli rabe when I grill it. I love olive oil so much. I like garlic. We're gonna use a lot. There's probably some hack that Frank knows that I don't.
If you lean on it, you'll get all the cloves out. Just give it a little whack.
Toss these in. I wanna let that infuse a little bit before I add in the chilies because I wanna make sure that these aren't going to overpower everything else and be too spicy or anything like that. I plop them in. They smell good. We'll do one more. Have you even had pimenton? It's like a sweet paprika. It's so good. It's smoky. It's like the mezcal of spices. I feel like I want to just add in a little salt and pepper. Nothing crazy though, because we already have the chilies in there. I'm gonna set it right here on the cutting board and let it cool. Now we're gonna grill my broccoli rabe. They're nicely, beautifully blanched. For the first time in my life, may I add, broccoli rabe. And I'm just gonna go ahead and take all throughout and get it covered so it's not gonna be sticking to the grill. Go ahead and hit the grill. Ooh, very nice. Oh yeah, we're starting to get some char. We don't wanna burn them, but we want there to be a little bit something going on. Okay, I'm gonna just let it do its thing and wish I had that beer in my hand. Does Frank have my beer?
Trying to get me drunk, huh?
I hope he's enjoying it at least.
Give me 6 more. We'll see where I'm at. So while the carrots are happily bubbling away in our beer, I'm gonna take the chance to make our pork chop and the sauce that goes with the dish. And there's really not much you need to do to this other than get it nice and brown and don't overcook it. I'm gonna season it well, just a little bit of pepper. The salt's gonna form a crust with the pepper. The middle part of the meat has no seasoning at all. It's gonna be seasoned as you eat it. What I'm looking for is that my oil kind of makes ripples, and I'm also looking for a little bit of smoke. I take my pork chop, just put it into the pan, and drop it away from you. Leave it alone.
All right, I think these have a nice char on them, so I'm gonna go ahead, put them on here. I know, that Frank is a fan of layering flavors. So a little extra drizzle, a little salt. All right, we're gonna make a vinaigrette. I got my spring onions, my herbs. We're gonna toss them all up, stir them together, and I'm gonna make this vinaigrette, and then this is gonna end up going on top of my pork. I'm gonna go ahead and toss these in some olive oil before I start charring them. All right, on the go. We wanna get that nice charred flavor and incorporate it into the vinaigrette. Get my garlic started. Lots of garlic in this dish. Mince, 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 mince. Oregano is just the coziest little herb. I also don't want to use too much of my jalapeno because spicy isn't necessarily a staple of Spanish cooking. My onions are looking like they would like to flip on their backside. Oh man, look at that. All right, Frank, I see what you're doing here with this.
And we're gonna leave it on this side for maybe 7 to 8 minutes, maybe a little more depending on how the brown looks. I'm gonna lower my heat just a little because I got some nice smoke going on here. Some of the juices are gonna come off this pork chop and caramelize. And in French, they call that fond. You don't wanna get rid of that stuff. You can see I have some nice browning there, right? After I sear this side, I'm gonna hold it up with my tongs and try and brown this piece of fat off. I'm gonna turn it over and get that fat nice and brown. Now's a good time for a sip of beer.
My parsley is pretty finely chopped, which I want for my vinaigrette. For my oil, 3/4 cup. Glug, 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 glug. Go ahead and put this in. Spanish sherry. Ooh, it smells so good. It smells so sweet. And that's gonna be so awesome to balance out everything else. I really am excited. I'm gonna let these cool for a second while I get my whisk. Pretty generous pinch. A little more. Grinded pepper. Chop these spring onions. I wanna make sure they're not too big of chunks. I'm gonna go ahead and add this in, and then I'm gonna whisk it all together. Spring onion vinaigrette is done. We are cooking the Iberico Pluma. I'm gonna do exactly what Rosemary told me to do. The Iberico Pluma looks kind of like a really, really fancy pork tenderloin.
The Iberico hog or pig is so different than the rest because the hogs eat so many acorns and natural things. The fats are really different, and I would just leave it on the rare side in the range of 135 for this cut of meat. The saffron and the salt together, I would just sprinkle on at the end. The salt in particular is really luxurious.
As you can see, it is just absolutely marbled with this beautiful fat, and the color is so brilliant. Drizzle on a little bit of this gorgeous oil. So that's even a little much. Okay. Just a nice little pinch all over.
When you poke on a piece of raw meat, it leaves a dent. Medium's gonna have some spring back, leaving just a little bit of a dent. Well done is gonna be like hard as a rock. What I wanna do is let it rest. It's got some really nice golden brown color to it. So I have all this excess fat. I'm gonna get rid of almost all of it, right? I'm gonna lower the heat so this doesn't burn. Just get my garlic, cloves, and then I just rough chop. Take a little fresh oil, and then I'm gonna take my garlic and put it into the pan with that fond. Beautiful fond right there. My garlic is sizzling away. I'm gonna take the leftover beer that I had and I'm gonna deglaze. Deglazing is a term where we're gonna take a liquid, pour it into the pan to kind of stop the garlic from cooking, but it's also gonna lift up those beautiful brown bits from the pork chop. And now I'm gonna let this reduce. I turn it up really high and I kind of scrape off all those brown bits so that they come off the bottom. And that's the base for our sauce. We have a little bit of this thyme. I'm gonna take a little sprig and throw it into the sauce. We have it in the potatoes. We might as well throw it in here. You can see we're getting a few big bubbles in there, and that's what I want. I want this to bubble away. The fond is off the bottom. If I run my spatula through, there's nothing left on the bottom of the pan. I'm gonna add my chicken broth, kind of double the amount of beer, and I'm gonna let this reduce. I'm not gonna go heavy on the salt right now because if it reduces and I have too much salt now, it's gonna be way too salty.
We are ready for the grill. Smoke is blowing in my face and it smells so good. It's like a perfume. I'm gonna leave here and there's gonna be a pack of dogs just chasing me through the streets. Not gonna touch it, just gonna let it do its thing.
Potatoes are out of the oven. And all I'm gonna do is put my paring knife in and it comes out nice and clean. I'm gonna run my knife around the edge just to see how it comes out. Give it a little tap, whisper to it, come on, come out. And a little bit of patience prevails, okay? We'll put some of this cheddar cheese on top and we're gonna throw it into the broiler.
We're flipping. Oh, yeah. I'm gonna otherwise let it do its thing. It's the thing when you grill, you always gotta give it a little test. Very Spanish, too.
So the sauce is happily bubbling away, right? I think it's time to add butter. And what this is gonna do, this is gonna help round our sauce out, a nice flavor. I can take the thyme out now. Most of the leaves stayed on there, but it's given its flavor to the sauce. Just gonna add a little black pepper to this. Oop, it just blew up on me. Not the pepper master, the salt master.
So let's see where we're at. We're at 130, 31, 32. All right, we're there. And here is the Iberico Pluma. All right.
My sauce, but I'm gonna add a little lemon juice, and then we're gonna strain everything out. Just the sauce, none of the chunks. So I don't have any seeds in there. There's no pepper, there's no garlic. It's a nice clean sauce. You can see that my carrots, you see like it's getting kind of thick and syrupy. My carrots are done. And I think we're ready to plate. Just to make this a little restaurant fancy, I'm gonna take my potato dish that's nice and brown, and I'm gonna place it on the plate. This is gonna kind of be the anchor of our dish. It's gonna hold my pork chop up and give it some of that height that I'm looking for.
The skin is like crackling. So tender, might be a little thicker than it should have. We're gonna cut a nice fat wedge. We're winging it. Look at the meat and cheese, you see the layers.
The carrots are nice and glazed. You can see they're shiny. I don't want that glaze on my plate. That glaze is a little too sweet. I'm angling my pan away from me so I don't get that glaze. And I'm just gonna have them kind of peek out the side here.
Let's see. Like I said, I'm no expert. Our vinaigrette over on this side.
I got my pork chop. I'm gonna choose whichever side looks the nicest, and I think this side looks great. Give my plate a clean.
The saffron finishing salt. What is that? Who is she? She is saffron.
I went to a lot of trouble to get this pork chop golden brown. So I'm not gonna take my sauce right now and dump it over the top. Direct it with our spoon. And that is my pork chop dinner. I hope Gabby likes it. I zhuzhed it up a little, but I think that it might bring back some memories of grandma. Cool.
How can I make this not so ugly? All that work and it looks stupid on a plate. So like, I'm just gonna clean this edge of the plate off. I can't wait for Frank to taste it.
Cheers. Hi, Gabby. How are you?
Hi,
Nice
how
to meet
are you? It's so nice to meet you.
We're going here.
Cheers.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, it's a little fancier than I think that my gram used to make. I feel like this is a little taste of Spain, and this for me is a little taste of home. What do I do?
It tastes like a steak, right? It's delicious.
Getting in here?
I like it a little rare,
Okay.
but it's so juicy and delicious, the piece of meat. It's just great. Potato, it's got that beautiful Iberico ham.
Mm-hmm.
The outside is crispy and the center is kind of creamy, and you nailed it, right? You can taste the ham. It doesn't overpower. Right. Taste a little bit of the smokiness. It's not overpowering.
Good.
The heat isn't overpowering from the chilies, and that's kind of the idea. I give it an A+. This is good.
A+.
Yes.
From Frank. Frank, what's the best bite of this pork chop?
The loin is delicious, but I like something closer to the bone. Like right here, there's a little nugget of meat that has fat on it.
I love it.
Thank you.
I love that it's just in this like gorgeous little mound. That is comfort food.
Does it bring you back a little?
My brain just went like 20 years back. They're like twisties. Let's see. Wow.
I mean, they're a little sweet because there's some brown sugar in there.
I like that.
You know, we have fatty and then another fatty, and then we have something that's a little sweet. I think it helps cut it a little. I'm never going to be as good of a cook as your grandmother, right? Because like nobody's as good a cook as my grandmother. It's all, and it sounds corny, but it's about love. It's the people you make it for.
It is.
If you love them,
Yep.
you're going to take good care of them, you know?
Yep. That was so much fun.
Can I get a selfie with you?
Oh my gosh, yes. Yay. You don't know this yet, but we have a Halloween costume planned for you. Do you know what it's gonna be?
What?
So I would really love to grill hot dogs with you while you're wearing a hot dog costume.
I think that as long as I make my own costume, people will be accepting of it. But I have to make it. So.
Whoever is going to eat this, congratulations. I know I'm gonna eat it. Congratulations.
Hi, I'm Frank. I'm a professional chef, and this is a $500 steak dinner.
Hi, I'm Lorenzo. I'm a home cook, and this is gonna be a $16 steak dinner. No, pardon you.
Coca-Cola, huh?
I mean, this is just somebody went out in the forest and went nuts. This says it is Frank's. And I have to tell you, first off, poor handwriting, Frank.
So for my meal, I was planning on a more high-end restaurant feel to it. I had a butter-based ribeye steak.
Holy smokes, look at that. I don't think I've even ordered that before.
I had fondant potatoes
Fondant, what does that mean?
with caviar and creme fraiche,
Huh? Oh, caviar. Ooh, caviar.
some bordelaise sauce with black truffles,
What is this, bordelaise? What? What is a what is that?
and some broccolini with wild mushrooms.
And this is something I wore at prom. What the fudge, you guys? I feel slightly evil. It's like we broke into a 5-star Michelin restaurant and I just grabbed everything I possibly could and said, let's have some fun.
With Lorenzo's recipe, I have a little more simpler ingredients and maybe something that's a little more commonplace in your kitchen. Flank steak, Coca-Cola, low-sodium soy sauce, garlic, ginger, broccoli, some chili flake, russet potatoes, scallions, sour cream, and cheddar. So these ingredients might be a little simpler, but I think that I can elevate them and make them a little better. If I had to guess, this would probably cost about $25 to $30. Oh, 16, really? Oh, it's cheaper than I thought.
It's a little intimidating because it's really fancy schmancy pachancy. I mean, it's a few $100 that I don't have.
The fondant potatoes I had planned, 16, really? Oh, it's cheaper than I thought.
It's a little intimidating because it's really fancy schmancy pachancy. I mean, it's a few $100 that I don't have.
The fondant potatoes I had planned to make sound really fancy, and I hope Lorenzo doesn't get scared off by that.
Why? Why? Salt, pepper, butter. Potato, simple. What's wrong with you? I like how I'm looking at Frank's recipe. It's actually just ingredients. It doesn't tell me step-by-step stuff. I'm like, I think I'm just looking for some some help.
And it's kind of just that next step up from just roasting potatoes in a pan.
I'm a little clueless on a couple of things. Is there a chance that I could maybe ask somebody for a little help? Rosemary! How am I? I'm panicking a little bit, actually. I feel like I'm on an island and I just drew help in the sand. Can you? Fondant potatoes.
Oh, they're delicious. What you're gonna do is you're gonna trim off the very edges and you're going to cut them in half and peel them. They're gonna look kind of like scallops and sear the top, get it real crispy.
Okay.
And then you're going to take them and flip them, sear the other side.
Okay.
And then you're gonna add a stock, like a chicken stock or a vegetable stock.
Okay.
And finish them in the oven.
Thank you so much, Rosemary. I appreciate it. Take care. It just sounds more complicated, but it's potatoes. You know, I can do it. Bing! Ooh, Lord have mercy. Okay, so I've got all my lovely russet potatoes, pretty much like little stools, and I'm gonna sear both sides.
Originally, Lorenzo planned for this to be a regular baked potato. So what we're gonna do is twice baked potatoes. A little more fat, a little more flavor, just a little more deliciousness, okay? Baked potato butter is great. Twice baked potato with cream cheese and cheddar is even better.
All right, so I have the garlic. I'm just gonna crush it. I have the ingredients, and I know. It just doesn't tell me how to put it together. That's the mystery.
First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bake it. I'm gonna poke a few holes in it just to let steam escape so my skin doesn't rupture. I'm gonna wrap it in foil. I'm gonna bake this potato about 350, 45 minutes to an hour.
I already hear Rosemary saying that's not long enough. It has to be darker, and you didn't sear it long enough. And this is a Gigantosaurus tongs. What the heck?
So this potato was baked for about 50 minutes. When you squeeze, you can see there's a little bit of give. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the potato, slice it in half, and very carefully, with not trying to break the skin, I'm going to take the center of the potato out. I wanna leave a little bit of a wall there, so it's not just skin, just so that it holds together. And I'm just gonna kind of like mash this up a little, just so I don't have any big chunks.
Yeah, see, I should have turned it up all the way. That's more like it. Oh, there you go. Hello. That is, all right, Rosemary would be happy with that. Okay, okay. Okie dokie, Sudoki.
I'm gonna add all my flavorings to this. A little bit of sour cream. Well, maybe not a little bit, maybe a lot. Salt and pepper, definitely. I'm gonna grate a little cheese. I got some nice cheddar here. Don't be skimpy with the cheese. It's gonna add some richness, a little bit of sharpness to this. I'm gonna use scallions as a flavoring for this. This is one of those ingredients that people will do this. They'll cut the root end off. They'll either use all the white and throw away the green, or use all the green and throw away the white. I use the whole thing. All of it's good. And we're gonna mix it really well. Always taste your food. Delicious. At this point, you can probably just scoop it in with the spoon. I'm gonna use a pastry bed, okay? It gives me a little more direction. I can make it exactly the way I want it. It doesn't look like you didn't care and just kind of flopped it on there. The pastry bed gives a little more of an elegant feel to it. So at this point, we're gonna put them in the oven, and we're gonna let the top get a little brown, let them warm through, and then we'll garnish later.
I need to turn this down because I don't want to burn my butter. I'm not sure how much butter is in here, but I would imagine, yeah, of course, you add the butter first. I'm guessing that's 1 tablespoon, 2 tablespoons, 3 tablespoons, 4. Oh, I'm going for it. It's like a stick of butter, I think. Let's let that go. Oh, let me put my yeah. Oh, that's happening. Potatoes and butter. You win. Rosemary. Hugs. We are moving on to the sauce that I have no idea how to pronounce. Bordelaise sauce. Thank you, Frank.
In Lorenzo's recipe, he marinates the steak in the Coke and the soy sauce. I'm not gonna do that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the marinade stuff and make a glaze out of it. So if you wanna dip into it later, you can dip into it. If you wanna just taste a nice piece of meat, taste a nice piece of meat. Hopefully no one shook this up. So in places that I've seen Coca-Cola used in marinades and baking, it usually comes from the fact that there was sugar rationing during World War II. So I'm gonna cook this down, basically just dumping everything to the pot and letting it reduce down. And I'm gonna look for this. Right now the bubbles are gonna be really small and kind of fluttery. And then once this starts to get a little thicker, you're gonna see bigger bubbles that take a little longer to burst. You wanna just reduce it until it starts to thicken rather than till it's dry. If it gets dry, it's gonna burn.
All right, now I'm gonna do the red wine reduction. So I need to reduce this about a cup. Frank says it's about a cup, a little bit more than a cup. I'm going to add my shallots, fresh thyme, and bay leaf. Easy peasy. So far, so good. Ow, no, just kidding. Let's put a couple of these in. We can also, this looks like a very rich sauce. The color's fantastic. Not quite sure how thick it's supposed to be. Earth calling Rosemary, come in, Rosemary. What did she say? Can I ask you one more thing, if you have time? Okay, sauce, I have sauce that he wants me to make. I'm telling you what, Frank is not getting the Christmas card this year, I'm telling you. It calls for 1 cup of wine. How much do I reduce that?
So stick a spoon in and then run your finger down the back and
Oh.
give it weights. That's a nice thick enough sauce.
Okay. If not, worst case scenario, just drink the wine when I'm done. That is the test she wanted me to do, the old back of a spoon test.
And if it leaves a nice clean line, I know my sauce is thick enough.
Totally coated the spoon. Thanks, Rosemary. Turn this off, and all I have to do now is shave some black truffle. Oh, wow. Never had one of these guys in my presence. It's earthy.
With truffles, for the most part, they're best when they're freshly sliced on top of things.
Let's see, how much does he want us to do? Oh, the whole thing? Wow.
There's truffle products that have kind of those truffle flavorings in them, but when you get a fresh truffle, it should be sliced at the table in front of your guests. It's not just for the flavor, it's for the show as well.
It tastes expensive. All right, guys. Bordelaise sauce with black truffles.
The next step is to do our steak.
This steak is enormous. I mean, you guys.
Now with the ribeye that I had planned, the high-end ribeye, I had planned on sauteing it in a cast iron pan. The way I'm gonna cook this flank steak is similar to the ribeye. I really just wanna get a nice kind of caramelized coating on it. So I'm gonna season the steak first, a fair amount of salt and black pepper. With the salt, we go fairly heavy.
Liberally. So I need this hot, like super hot, you guys. This is the nicest skillet I've ever seen in my life. I like this. Christmas presents, please.
The key to this is that you don't want the oil to splash on you. So I'm just gonna drop it in the pan away from me.
Here we go, guys.
And I'm gonna let it stay there. Leave it alone.
Let it go.
This is gonna take a few minutes.
Send these smoke signals. Dinner's almost ready, people. Come and get it.
I'm gonna flip it away from me. Swirl it around so I have a nice amount of fat. But if you look at the steak, it has a beautiful crust on it now. It's gonna add a ton of flavor to this steak. It's going to add some texture as well. You're gonna get a little crunchy bits.
Let's just throw these in. We smashed it.
What I'm gonna do to check temperatures, I'm not necessarily gonna use a thermometer. If I push on this piece of meat and it gives me some spring back, that means that it's cooking. If I push on this piece of meat and it leaves a dent, that means it's pretty much raw in the center. So this I know is still pretty rare here, and here it's kind of cooking up.
You guys. I think I'm teary-eyed a little bit. It's so beautiful. I'm crying. It's so pretty.
Lorenzo's issue is going to be that's a really thick cut of steak. And usually with those, getting the right temperature is a little more of guesswork. So Lorenzo might want to use a thermometer for that.
Ooh, medium rare. Perfect.
So I'm going to let this steak rest for about 10 minutes.
I really want to dig in and eat this right now, but you need to let it rest.
If I slice it now, all the juice is going to flow out.
Be patient. It'll be worth it. Let's move on to the broccolini.
The expensive version, I was going to use broccolini. We have a rich steak, a really rich potato dish, and the broccolini is going to have just a little bit of bitterness to cut that. Broccolini tastes really great by itself, needs a little salt, pepper, maybe a little garlic, but everyday broccoli is delicious if you treat it right. So normally people take the broccoli, cut the head off, and everything else gets thrown in the garbage. What I like to do is I save the stems. So if you're going to serve the stems, you have to peel them, because otherwise it's a little on the tough side, and it sometimes needs a little help. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some garlic and a little bit of ginger. A lot of times people will boil broccoli, and boiled broccoli, I mean, there's nothing worse than that, right? It smells bad, it tastes bad, it gets too soft. I like to roast broccoli. It adds a little bit more depth of flavor to it. And I'm gonna use some of Lorenzo's ingredients here to make that just a little bit better. A little bit of chili flake, just to let him know it was there. I'm gonna use a little bit of soy sauce, I'm gonna use a little bit of salt. Both of them have salt in them, but salt kind of gives a pure, plain flavor, where soy sauce kind of gives a richness. I'm gonna throw this into an oven about 350 for about 15 minutes. You'll see the broccoli starts to break down. It'll start to get a little bit of caramelization or charring on top, and that's what I want. I want to take it out of the oven when it's just a little bit crispy.
I'm actually going to take it out, stopping the cooking process by submerging it into ice water. Next, mushrooms. I just have to start seeing what these are. These are great.
Lorenzo should make sure that he gets those mushrooms nice and caramelized. Any mushrooms that kind of go in a pan and they just kind of sit there and boil, not good. The texture's not really great. You want those mushrooms to be just slightly crispy when you put them on the plate.
These are very thin, delicate mushrooms, so I think it's okay to add whatever I need to add to finish this off. My broccolini looks good to me. Let's try it. Wow, this is lovely. Lovely, lovely jubbly is all I have to say. And wow, it's heavy. It hurt my wrist, it's so heavy.
The most important thing for this piece of steak is to cut against the grain. That's because if you cut it with the grain, it's just gonna be super chewy.
It looks so good. Does it look good?
When I'm plating a dish, I'm usually looking for a little textural difference, a little height difference, just to make it interesting. If you just throw everything on a plate flat, it's kind of boring. So I'm gonna kind of just prop things up a little, do a little chef wizardry, and try and make it just look a little bit nicer than what kind of grandma would have put on the plate.
Real fresh caviar. Ooh, it's the green caviar. Let's put a little bit of chives on the sides. Oh, broccolini has shaved fresh Parmesan.
So we have our beautiful steak propped up on our broccoli stems. I got a little bit of that soy and Coca-Cola glaze, and that's my take on Mr. Lorenzo's dish. There's a little piece left on my board. That's the chef's secret. We eat all the ends. We make staff meal out of it sometimes, but that's my snack, okay?
Truffles and that's it. That looks good, man. If I do say so myself. Steak.
Hey,
Frank,
how you doing?
it is an honor and a pleasure. I'm telling you right now, sir.
look at that.
It's good. Oh, that is my potato. Oh, it's a twice.
Yeah.
Between.
So, you know, we took a little chef's poetic license with
Yes.
this, right? We made like a little glaze with the cocoa and the soy sauce.
Oh, very good.
The
Very
broccoli
good.
we roasted with some ginger and soy, and then we did a twice baked potato. So I'm gonna give it a taste with this sauce and a little bit of mushroom on there.
Okay. I don't even know what kind of mushroom that is.
I think it's a chanterelle. Delicious. Your seasoning is wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Oh man, great.
Really.
Sauce is on point.
I never had a sauce like this before.
It's one of those classic French sauces. You know, you would think it'd be too rich, but it actually is a good foil
It
for the steak.
looks like it would be so
No,
rich because the
it's-
color. Look at the color.
it's a great
It's
compliment.
different. That is good.
Let's taste yours now.
Okay, let us get a little bit of this and.
I'm nervous too now. My heart's beating. I'm a little worried.
What is the reduction? Is this like the
This
soy
is the
sauce?
soy sauce, Coca-Cola, ginger garlic.
This tastes like mama. What my mama made. The ginger and soy sauce are so nice together.
And we roasted the broccoli with the ginger and garlic and a little bit of chili flake
Baked in the oven.
baked in the oven, yeah.
Oh my god. And it's a different texture because you do it in the oven. Nice.
I'm going
nice.
in. I'm
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
try
yeah,
too.
Frank. Oh my
See
gosh.
how we did.
It's yummy. The sauce is really delicious.
It really compliments. It almost tastes a little smoky, believe it or not. You know, I was a little nervous about Coca-Cola. I saw Coca-Cola, and now like I'm gonna add that to my kind of tool belt. You know, you don't think of Coca-Cola as an ingredient that you use in really good cooking, but that's delicious.
Thanks, Frank.
Yeah.
Thanks, Frank.
That was fun.
That was really fun and delicious. Eat up, you guys.
I can usually handle a lot of meat, but that was really dirty. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to stop. This is a family-friendly program.
Hi, I'm Frank. I'm a professional chef, and this is a $250 bolognese.
Hi, I'm John. I'm a home chef, and this is going to be a $25 bolognese.
Again.
Oh my God.
Stroke the server.
Okay, I just got really nervous. This is like something from the Flintstones. I have Frank's recipe book here.
The bolognese I planned on making, you'd probably see in a more expensive Italian restaurant. It's better ingredients, higher quality, and because of the high quality, you're gonna pay a little more. It's gonna be expensive.
This is a lot of ingredients to make a bolognese.
For my bolognese, I was planning on using short ribs.
This is meat. What the hell do you do with this?
I was gonna use guanciale,
Guanciale. Oh, it's not pancetta.
red wine, good olive oil.
This looks like just some really fancy olive oil and wine. If I'm allowed to, definitely want to take this bad boy home.
Lots of basil, a little bit of orange rind.
I don't know why we have an orange. I don't think it belongs in ragu sauce.
Calabrian chilies.
You could hear that there's the little seeds in there. I'm guessing that's what I'm working with.
These are the things that I believe make the foundation of a good meat sauce or a bolognese. For my fresh-made pasta, I was gonna use duck eggs.
Oh, lordy.
Duck eggs are gonna be a little bit richer than chicken eggs.
Very surprised about the pasta. Making homemade pasta for the first time. Gonna make Grandma proud.
I was gonna use 00 Italian flour.
00, like James Bond. Turns out this is laminated pasta. I don't know what that means.
And I had everything together to make a fresh dough for some homemade garlic knots.
Like what? That's insane. By my count, I'm making not one, but 2 doughs. We shall overcome.
So for John's recipe, we have simpler ingredients. Ground beef and ground pork, some pecorino romano, some butter, tomato paste. Instead of guanciale, we're gonna use bacon, dry pasta, parsley, garlic, carrots, onions, and some white wine. John's ingredients might be simpler than mine, but I think with good technique, we can elevate them and make them better. If I had to guess, this would probably cost about 25 bucks. On the money, huh? Okay.
If I had to guess, $300, maybe $400 recipe? That is too much money for pasta sauce.
The sauce I plan to make sounds really fancy, but at the end of the day, it's a fairly simple sauce.
I don't see the actual instructions, and it doesn't look like he left me any. This is gonna be a challenge for sure. Like, there's really no directions.
And everything's gonna be braised together. And it's gonna kind of take this really tough piece of meat and make it super, super soft and tender.
Could I actually get Rose on the phone now? I have some questions. Hey Rose, it's John. How are you?
Good. How are you, John? It's nice to see you.
You too. I'm freaking out a little bit. So first up, for his meat sauce, Frank has short ribs, which I've never worked with before.
With short ribs, I think the best way to go is to sear them a little bit first and get some nice browning going on, and then cook them low and slow in a sauce. You're not going to want to cook them all the way through just by searing them. After you sear it and you really finish cooking it in the sauce, you're going to want to shred it because you don't want a big hunk of meat. 2 forks should do the trick. Just kind of pull it apart and then mix it together. It's going to be so good. You're going to be great.
You want to come here and help me make it?
I do. I'll come and help you eat it.
Oh, there you go. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have fun. We'll see you soon.
Bye, Rose. Not vastly different from my recipe, just again, a few new ingredients. Olive oil in there. So let's throw in our beautiful short ribs. Look how nice these hunks of meat are. Sorry, was that sexual again? I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to be. Well, she called it a hunk of meat too on the phone, so it's not just me. So while that's cooking, I'm gonna cut up my guanciale. Again, this is the jowl. It's fatty, as we know, just like bacon. And I know Frank likes these fancy cuts of meat. Looks like it's getting nice and brown on that one side. Again, I know Rosemary said I don't want to fully cook it in here, so I'm just looking to get it nice and brown on all the sides, and then I'll take it out.
John gave me some simple ingredients, but the way I'm gonna tackle this is I'm gonna try to build layers of flavor in my pot. Just a little bit of oil, bacon, you stack up, and we're gonna just cut it into nice strips, and it goes right into the pot. So the bacon's gonna get brown, it's gonna render off some of its fat, and we're gonna take it out and leave the fat in there to brown off our vegetables.
I think this is ready to come out. It looks braised on all sides, nice and brown. Now that the meat's resting and braised on all the sides, I'm gonna start the sauce. Our onions, garlic, carrots, and the guanciale.
This bacon fat is kind of liquid gold at this point. So once the bacon starts to get brown, I'm gonna take it out. Next thing we're gonna do is brown our meats, the beef and the pork. And I'm doing all of this over a fairly high heat because I wanna get some browning. Browning equals flavor. And this is kind of our second layer of flavor. I'm gonna strain off some of the fat, not all of the fat. You want some of the fat in there. I'm gonna add it back to the pan, not all of it. And then I'm gonna start adding my aromatic vegetables. Onions, I have a clove of garlic that I'm just gonna whack up, carrots, and I have some celery. All of these ingredients right now are kind of fundamentals to a good ragu or a good bolognese. Originally, John had butter at this stage. I'd much rather add the butter at the end of the sauce. I think adding the butter at the end when we actually toss the pasta is gonna give us a better flavor.
So I'm guessing I take the orange as well as the basil and parsley and do a little Frank bouquet with it. Figure out how Frank does this.
I find that orange rind bumps up that tomato flavor. It has a little bit of sharpness to kind of cut some of that fat.
Hold on.
Now that the vegetables you can see on the bottom of the pot, we're getting a little brown, I'm gonna add my bacon back.
Hold on.
And I'm gonna add all of my meat back.
No. Wait, maybe.
And we give it a stir. I'm gonna add my tomato paste. When I do this sauce, I always add a little more tomato, but tomato paste is super concentrated, has a nice rich flavor. This doesn't need red wine. There's a lot of flavors going on, so I'm gonna add just a nice couple of plugs of white wine. And I truly believe that you don't need to use great wine for this. I think boxed wine is okay. Give me the box, I'll make it work. It'll still taste great. If I smell it, I'm gonna smell the alcohol boiling out, and that's basically what I wanna do with this.
A little for the sauce, and a little for me. Ooh, it's a nice vintage. I don't cook with red wine too much, but when I do, you gotta drink it. So my red wine's cooked down. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add my veal stock. And I've never worked with veal stock before, and it turns out that this is homemade from Frank. Thank you, Frank. Little handy-dandy bouquet with the orange peel and the basil.
And we're just gonna add enough chicken broth to basically cover the meat. One thing home cooks don't do is you should be tasting. And I think I'm good with seasoning right now. You can see right now that it's really liquidy, and I want some of that liquid to cook out. I'm gonna lower the heat just a little and just let it simmer away happily. And what I'm looking for is that this is gonna coat our pasta.
Could just buy crushed tomatoes, but no, I get to get my hands dirty, so. Woo! My tomatoes got a little overexcited. And I just want to get it to a nice consistency where I don't feel any giant clumps. It smells so good. I actually smell the orange zest. This is the beautiful braised short rib. Just a nice dash of salt, black pepper, I have these beautiful Calabrian chili flakes, but this will give the sauce a nice little kick to it. I don't know how spicy these are, so I'm only gonna add, let's say like half a teaspoon. And I'm gonna let it simmer for a few hours, covered. I'm feeling pretty good. This was challenging, but not as hard as I expected. After that, I think everyone deserves one of these. Thanks, Frank.
A little different than what a normal home cook might do. I didn't just dump everything to the pot. What I did was I built layers of flavor. Bacon fat. Those roasty flavors come through in the sauce. We want our food to have layers of flavor, and that's what we did. We built layers of flavor. Now the garlic bread. John gave me like kind of a soft kind of deli loaf. It's not a bad thing. I like something a little sturdier.
So I've never done this before, but Rose gave me a lot of great tips. Frank also has me making pizza dough for his garlic knots.
If you have access to a standing mixer, that's gonna make your life a lot easier. And you can pinch off a little bit and stretch it. It's called the window pane test. And if you can see through the dough, that means you've got really nice gluten development. The garlic knots are gonna be, I think they're gonna be your easiest part.
Oh, good. I was actually worried about that, so that's good to hear. Gonna use a pizza hook, which is there, and get that dough to a nice consistency where I could almost stretch it and look through it like a window, she said. We'll see. 00 flour, salt, sugar, the dry yeast, olive oil, and some water. Please let this work. Ingredients are combining, looking good so far. Let me turn up a little more. Okay, too much, we're gonna go back down. This is kind of silly to do all this work when I could just go downstairs to the pizzeria and get some garlic knots, but in true Frank fashion, we're gonna do it the fancy way.
First thing I'm gonna do is cut it in half. So I'm gonna use unsalted butter, and it's room temperature. Always fresh cracked black pepper. I control the salt now. I like pecorino cheese a lot better than like Parmesan, and I'll probably get some hate mail about that. I just think it has a lot more flavor than Parmesan, so I'm really happy that John chose pecorino. Some garlic, that's a lot of garlic. I don't need this much garlic. I'm gonna also put a little chopped parsley in there, a little bit of olive oil, and then bring it all together.
I mean, that looks like dough to me. I think this is good. I feel like this is good to go. That looks pretty smooth to me, I think. Yeah, let's try it. Confidence. So now to check if my dough is ready, I'm gonna take a note from Rose and see if it looks like a window pane. Thanks for the tip, Rose. So I'm gonna transfer this dough into a bowl with olive oil and just let it rise and really activate that yeast. I'm gonna cover up the dough with some plastic wrap and just let this rise up. So my dough is resting. Now I'm gonna make the compound butter for my garlic bread. Fancy Italian butter, raw garlic, roasted garlic, fresh parsley and basil here, salt, pepper, olive oil, and then of course, Parmigiano Reggiano. This is the good stuff. These are gonna be some really tasty garlic knots. All right. I'm just gonna give it a little taste to make sure it's all good. Mmm, there's some fancy ass butter.
Nice generous amount of the butter. Don't leave anything naked. Last, I'll take some more of that sharp pecorino and go over the top with it. I probably used a lot less garlic than John. I don't want this to kind of be offensive and overpowering. If you add mozzarella to this, it might bump it up a couple of notches.
The dough has risen quite a bit, as you can tell. Oh my God, it's so nice. Maybe I just play with this and we call it a day, you know? And garlic knot isn't that difficult of a shape. It's kind of like a pretzel, but more clumped together. I really have no idea what I'm doing. Okay. I'm just gonna try, we'll see. Like, this is what I was thinking, I don't know if it makes sense. Maybe it's like a cinnamon bun. Garlic knot? You know, I would love to bother Rosemary again, but I'm gonna figure this out on my own. We're gonna leave this as test subject A. That one was more of a swirl action than a knot. So this one, I'm gonna roll it out and actually tie it like a true knot. And there's a garlic knot. God, I'm so smart. Haha. This is actually really fun. Been to so many pizzerias in my lifetime growing up here in New York, and I feel like I've seen different iterations of garlic knots, some fat, some small, some really garlicky, some not. I hope these make Frank proud. I'm gonna keep the test one there as a reminder that you can achieve better. We're just gonna finish this off with a little flaky sea salt. Now, these puppies are ready for the oven. Let's try to make some pasta. And then I've seen Frank do this before. A little nest for the eggs, if you will. Maybe should have made a deeper well in there. Oh, try 3, whoop! Oh no. My little lava didn't work out, but we'll fix it.
So John gave me fettuccine. It's a dry pasta product. Fresh pasta is kind of a special occasion thing. If you add the pasta to the pot when it's not boiling, it's gonna start clumping together. Most people think that it clumps together, they need to add oil to the water. Not necessary, no oil in the water. So we're waiting for the water to boil, and normally I just have a beer. Not the option here. I want a beer. It's never too early, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, right? That's what they always say.
Salt, texture's really weird, really sticky. My grandma would be so proud of me. God rest her soul if she saw me making dough for homemade pasta. Like, this is pretty cool. Still a little sticky, so I'm gonna add just a little more flour. This is work. Working up a sweat. And if you are not a fan of mess, I do not recommend making this because, as you can see, it's pretty messy. The dough is wrapped, so I'm gonna let it rest for about an hour.
We are boiling. I'm gonna add a fair amount of salt. If you don't have high blood pressure, don't worry about it. It's gonna be fine. I'm gonna drop my pasta in. At this point, you don't wanna leave it alone, right? You wanna continue to stir so that it doesn't stick together, right? So I'm gonna just let it cook a little, and I'm gonna come back to it. Traditionally, I like to use a thicker pasta or a pasta that has some sort of shape to it so that it holds the sauce. Fettuccine is not horrible, but a wider pasta like the pappardelle that I wanted to do has more surface area for the pasta sauce to cling to. I wonder how John's doing right now.
Laminated pasta. Talk to Rosemary about it. Yeah, so what is laminated pasta? I've never heard of that term.
You're gonna make sheets of pasta. With the herbs, you're not gonna mix them into the pasta dough while you're making the pasta. You're gonna lay them onto the sheet and then fold it over or cover it with another sheet of pasta. So you have this really pretty, almost stained glass effect.
Dust our dough. A little for good luck. Take a chunk of dough like that. I want it to get super thin. Okay, not that difficult yet. Roll out this other, whoop. So now to get that stained glass effect, I'm just gonna lay out some leaves of fresh parsley and basil. So now I'm gonna take my other piece of pasta, cover it, and then put it through the roller again to make it that nice laminated pasta that Frank so very much wants. That kind of does look like stained glass. I'm gonna go in and make nice, thick strips of pasta. I think the nice thickness in these noodles will complement the meat. Now we're gonna finish up our beautiful laminated pasta with some flour. I think this will make for some really nice pasta to complement our ragu. Now the test will come when we cook it.
I'm just gonna cook it 3/4 of the way. I'm gonna finish cooking it in the pot. This way, the pasta finishes cooking in the sauce. It's gonna soak up some of the sauce. The starch from the pasta is actually gonna thicken the sauce a little. Tasting your pasta and testing it using your teeth is the best way to do it. Throwing it on the wall, I don't know what kind of walls you have at home, but I don't want pasta sticking on my wall. I'm gonna take my pasta out and I'm gonna add it to my sauce. I'm not too worried about having some extra water on there. It's not a big deal because we're gonna finish cooking the pasta in the pot. I know it's probably much easier to use a colander over the sink, but this, I promise you, is gonna yield a better product at the end.
So now let's finish off our bolognese. Oh yeah, this meat is super tender. It's really just coming apart. I'm pulling it apart lightly with a fork. What I wanna do is get an even consistency of the short rib throughout the dish. You know, I imagine Frank is doing something really phenomenal with my bolognese recipe.
I'm gonna take a little bit of that butter that I talked about that I saved from the beginning, and I'm gonna add it to the sauce. And this is where John's sauce differs from mine. My sauce is a little more tomato forward. You can see that we put tomato paste in this sauce, but it's not really a tomato sauce. It's more of a meat sauce with a little bit of tomato product in it.
I'm gonna do a little taste test to make sure it's cooked all the way through. Oh my God, oh so good.
I'm gonna add a little more of this pasta water, right? Because again, I want my pasta to finish cooking in the sauce. And once I start to see the sauce thicken a little more and stick to the pasta, I'm gonna test it with the spoon and I'll show you what I'm looking for. I dip it in, you can actually see the sauce has some weight to it and it's coating the back of the spoon. It's not as watery, you can actually see that it's fairly thick. You can see that the sauce is starting to stick to the pasta, and I think I'm done here. Now all I gotta do is plate it up.
Because it's fresh pasta, it's actually gonna cook really quickly in about 2 to 3 minutes. Olive oil, throw in some garlic. Ah, that's beautiful. Lower the heat a little bit. I'm just gonna transfer it right from the boiling water into our sauce. This feels like how they do it in the restaurants. I've seen it, but never actually did it myself. This is pretty cool. Don't wanna get too much water in there, but a little pasta water is actually quite tasty, so I don't mind it. Pasta bolognese. So all that's left to do is to toss these knots with the compound butter, and they'll be ready to eat. Just gonna use all of it. It looks so delicious. Come on. Oh God, it smells so good. You can really smell all the flavors in the compound butter. These look awesome. This was a lot of work for garlic knots, but I think it was worth it. I mean, look how awesome these look. Come on.
I'm gonna grab my bread and cut it. I'm gonna kind of make it a little fancy. Okay, I'm gonna cut it on a nice steep angle. God, it looks so good. And I'm gonna try to be fancy like restaurant, like Frank does. I'm gonna use my tongs to twirl it up together, and I'm gonna carry that over to my plate. I dripped a little. I'm gonna spoon a little of my sauce on top. I like a little more sauce than the Italians would. I like a nice saucy pasta, and I wanna make sure there's a lot of meat. So I'm gonna go in there and
grab some of the good bits ever so lightly, throw a little olive oil on there. That's good stuff.
Just a nice little shaving. You don't want to overdo with the pecorino. It's a strong cheese, so it might overpower. So just go nice and easy. A little bit of black pepper, and then just a touch of extra virgin olive oil. Gives it a little shine. Take your bread, put it on the plate so it stands up a little, with little bunny ears. Pasta bolognese with garlic bread.
I love this stuff, and at the restaurant, I just have them keep going and going and going. I'm gonna do the same. And then the final pièce de résistance, 2 of our homemade garlic nuts. And there you have it, some expensive bolognese.
And this is just a simple, comforting dish. There's nothing complicated about it. We used simple ingredients and made something beautiful with it. I really, really hope John likes my pasta.
This was a lot of work, but honestly, I can't wait to taste it because it looks like it was worth all the effort.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Hi,
Finally
Frank.
get to meet you.
Really excited about
Really
this.
excited. I can't wait to see how you did.
I hope I made you proud.
That looks really good. So with your dish, I didn't really change much. I kind of focused on like the layers of flavor that were going on. You had some really great ingredients, and all I did was focus on good technique.
These are a lot of first-time techniques for me, but I think I did you justice.
Right? Good. The flavor is great. The meat is amazing. And I love the chew of this. It takes that meaty sauce and it like stands up to it. I'm gonna have another bite.
That's what I expected. Does it taste like yours?
It's pretty close.
Okay, I'll take pretty close.
I'm a heavy seasoner.
Sure.
We're gonna crack that open and get a view of it, but look at that. See how like your crumb is really nice in there? Some great garlic flavor. The dough is like perfect. It's not like, you could easily make this super chewy and gross, but it's light and fluffy and it's really garlicky and delicious. And considering you've never made any of this before, like, I'm blown away.
I did feel like your presence was with me throughout the way. I had, your recipes. I want to see how I did because, again, first time. Oh my God. This blows away any pizzeria garlic nut.
Exactly. So you're gonna try mine? Now I'm a little nervous.
Oh my God. It almost has, correct me if I'm wrong, a slight carbonara ring to it.
Because I put a little butter in towards the end too, and the butter in the end really kind of puts that dairy component in without having to put milk. Did I do okay?
Absolutely. Did you do okay?
The guanciale doesn't have that kind of smokiness. The bacon is really strong there.
Yeah.
Again, that brings me back to my childhood too, like garlic bread.
It's a staple. Awesome. This is exactly what I wanted.
I think that we killed it, we crushed it. It kind of proves to me that, like, if you just jump into it, you can do it, and you shouldn't be afraid of it. I wish the first time I made pasta and bread, it was that good.
Well, I had a good teacher. Aw, get over here.
Great to finally meet you.
You too, and your eyes really are as blue as the ocean. Like, I could get lost in them. Yeah.
I'm Emily, and I'm a level 1 chef.
I'm Lorenzo, and I'm a level 2 chef.
I'm Frank, and I've been a professional chef for 23 years.
I last made this hamburger recipe probably about 2 weeks ago.
I actually just made this cheeseburger a couple days ago.
This is the burger I make for my family and friends, the people that are most important to me.
When I make burgers, I just use store-bought ground beef. Here we go.
This is grass-fed ground chuck. It's about 80 lean meat and 20 fat. The fat is your golden ticket to a good burger.
For my hamburgers, I like to use beef short ribs. It's got a great amount of lean meat to fat. The only problem with it is it's tough. So what we have to do is grind it. I like to grind my own meat because when you go to the supermarket, basically they're just getting whatever beef scraps they have. This way, I get a burger that I know exactly what's in it.
Now I'm just gonna put some breadcrumbs in. It holds it together, I think, a little better. Next step, some Worcestershire sauce, garlic powder, pepper, salt, chili flakes, because my husband likes everything spicy.
Now that my meat is ground up, I'm gonna form it into patty.
You really just shouldn't handle the meat too long.
I disagree with that.
Butch.
I like to work it a little so the burger stays together, holds its shape. What I usually do is I work it until it'll kind of stick to my hand.
I'm just gonna kind of like roll these up and then flatten them like hockey pucks.
Then I do the old divot, little dimple in the middle.
I work it into a volcano shape. What this is gonna happen is that when the meat cooks, it's gonna expand a little. This is actually gonna disappear and even out and make a nice flat burger.
Now we're ready to cook some burgers.
I cook the burgers in a cast iron pan. Cast iron pan holds a lot of heat.
I'm using a non-stick fry pan.
Skillet, griddle, flat iron. What I'm doing is cooking bacon. Why? I'm having a bacon cheeseburger.
So when I cook these, I don't really need that much pink inside, just a little bit of pink. That ground meat doesn't really have a great texture when you cook it rare.
I like it medium rare.
I season my burgers with salt.
Salt it right before you cook it.
What happens when you season ahead, salt draws out the moisture.
You want a moist burger.
When I season liberally. It's gonna help that crust form. I have a little beef fat, so I'm gonna take a little bit of fat and just coat the bottom of my pan.
I'll also use the delicious rendered fat from the bacon to cook my burger. Ooh. I'm gonna take these off. Over there.
The reason I use beef fat and not something like butter, with a pan this hot, I'm gonna put my butter in the pan and immediately the butter is gonna burn.
Ooh, I might have burnt that butter a little. I think it's fine.
Now I have my patty, I have my volcano in the middle, I'm gonna put the flat side down first.
So I'm gonna give it about 4 minutes on each side.
And when I see the lower portion of that burger get dark, crispy brown, flip over.
I'm gonna go as high as I possibly can to start that browning and the crust on the bottom. People tend to start moving things around. Leave the burger alone.
I'm just pressing down on it to make sure that all the meat touches the pan at least a little bit.
Do not press the juices out of this delicious burger. Please.
I want a little bit of onion flavor on my burger. I take a nice slice of onion, I'm gonna put it on top.
We're getting a lot of smoke, I'm not sure why.
So I can see that it's nice and crispy. So I'm gonna do the old flip. Oh, it looks good, you guys.
My burger's brown on this side, I'm gonna give it a flip. So you can see, I have a beautiful crust.
Here we go. Wait, there you go. Oh, it's very charred. This looks disgusting. Oh no, that's worse. Alright, we're just gonna go ahead and do that. Oh, good, the other side's nice and charry too.
There's a nice, crisp outer layer that's been formed. It's sealing the juices in this burger, and I'm waiting about 3 minutes.
So now my onion on the other side is getting caramelized. Caramelization is when the sugars start to go brown. The way that I'm gonna test this burger for doneness is I'm actually gonna poke at it, right? If I poke at it now, it's still really soft, and I want it to be fairly firm.
I'm gonna go ahead and put the cheese on this side because at least it's a little less charred. This is American cheese, so that'll melt nicely.
Today I'm using sliced cheddar cheese. Basically, this is when you get your camera out and you start taking pictures of your burger.
For this burger, I'm gonna use some Munster cheese. Now, Munster has a lot of the same melting qualities as American cheese, but it also has a little bit more flavor. I'm gonna let the Munster melt.
My burger is being hugged by my cheese. So let's set this delicious burger. Oh my Lord, have mercy.
So now my cheese is melted. It's not melted totally, but it's gonna continue to cook as I take it out of the pan.
I'm gonna take this off and just check the doneness real quick. If one were to eat this, it would be a little raw in the middle. That burger was burnt on the outside and raw on the inside, so we're gonna go again. I'm turning this on, much less hot than before. Butter, burger. Yeah, I think that's a cooked burger.
And now we're gonna get abundance and toppings and finish this burger.
I have a Kaiser roll today. I'm gonna butter it a little bit. I'm actually just toasting this in the griddle.
So I have just a normal white grocery store bun, a hamburger bun.
I like a potato roll. The bun doesn't need any extra fat. The burger has enough for it. Toasted plain.
Now we've got a nicely toasted Kaiser roll. Delicious.
Now we're gonna work on our toppings for the burger.
First off, I have some ketchup. I just like a little bit of moisture underneath the burger. Put a little mayo.
Hello.
All right, so we have mustard on the top. I usually do 3 dill pickle slices.
Fantastic.
As a chef, I like to make my own pickles. I have a fancy French mandolin. This gives the pickles a nice crinkled cut. And we just want to make enough to fill up our jar. Some sprigs of dill, I'm just gonna stuff them into the bottom of the jar. I have a little bit of garlic, add a couple of cloves, and then my spices. Coriander seed, black peppercorns, mustard seed, some little Thai bird chilies. And then I proceed to stuff my cucumbers in. And now I'm gonna take the brine that I made. I get a ladle, and I just fill it with the ladle. And there you go. Put my lid on, it goes right in the fridge. I leave it in the fridge for about a week. I have my burger patty. I'm gonna put it on my bun. I have the pickles that I made.
Bib lettuce.
That's a nice slice of lettuce right there.
Tomatoes.
I only like a few pieces of raw onion.
I kind of like a lot of it. Oh boy. My bacon. That looks good. And then some ketchup.
Not a ton. I just want enough so that it adds a little sweetness to my burger.
I'm just gonna press it all together. Bam.
Boom.
Beautiful.
It looks good.
It smells fantastic.
What I like most about this burger is it's not complicated.
Oh my god, this
Right?
is so heavy.
Oh, yeah. That's actually good. Oh, no.
I think that this giant ramen bowl is gonna be like 20 times the size of a normal bowl of ramen. Open your eyes.
Jeez.
Hi, welcome back to Tasty's Making It Big. I'm Alvin, and I love making giant food. Personally, I've been a fan of sumo wrestling for a very long time. I've always wondered, how do they train? What do they eat? How do they maintain that athletic prowess at such a size? So today, I've invited Yama-san from the USA Sumo to come in. So let's go meet him and see what he wants to eat.
Hello.
Oh, nice to meet you,
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you for coming in. I've always wanted to meet a sumo wrestler like you. Can you tell me what it's like to be a sumo wrestler?
Very hard, bad, very nice.
Oh. What is the training like?
So we wake up at 6 a.m. training. We finish at noon.
6 hours of training?
Yeah. Very important. After eat, sleep.
Why? Why do you sleep?
Make big body. Yeah. Then eat and then sleep.
Are there any misconceptions, about sumo that you think need to be addressed?
お相撲さんは実はジャンクフードとかは全然食べてなくて、かなりヘルシーなヘルシーフードばっかり食べてて体を作ってるんで、多分そこら辺が違う考えだと思います。
One of my dreams is to cook for a sumo wrestler like you. What giant food would you like me to make for you today?
Can you make me ramen?
Giant ramen?
Yeah.
What kinds of ingredients do you like in your ramen?
Chashu, egg,
Okay.
and green onion,
Okay.
seaweed. That's it.
Okay. What kind of broth do you like?
Tonkotsu.
Tonkotsu broth. Oh, me too.
I like tonkotsu.
Oh, me too. That's my favorite. Thanks. Okay. I have to think about this. Might be tough, but I think I can do it.
Yeah, good luck, man.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. So, I got a lot to do. I gotta make a giant egg. I gotta make homemade ramen broth, big giant ramen noodles, and somehow make a giant pork. And honestly, it's kind of a lot to deal with. I think I'm gonna have to call in some backup. I got a friend in mind that I think could really help me out, so I'll be right back. Guys, this is my friend Inka. She's a producer at BuzzFeed. She's made some amazing videos. You might have seen a lot of the cool stuff that she's done. She's amazing in the kitchen. Inka, welcome to the show.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah. Have you ever made ramen before?
I have not made ramen. I've made other kinds of noodles, like Taiwanese beef noodle soup.
Okay.
Stir-fry noodles.
Well, you have a lot more experience than I do, so I'm glad you're here today. We're gonna make a giant ramen. Full disclaimer, this isn't anything particularly new. Channels have done similar versions, but we wanna do our own take on it. I think the first thing we're gonna do is make the broth. So we're gonna make a tonkatsu broth. We have a lot of meat, pork feet, chicken backs, chicken necks, a lot of kind of the odds and ends and pieces. The reason why they use these odd cuts is because I think it adds a lot of flavor, right?
It's a good way to use up like the normal cuts you wouldn't just eat.
So let's just throw that in there.
All right. Wow.
This is
Gentle.
gentle with the meat. So water going in. Take this into the back, boil it, clean off any impurities. Oh, I'll be right back.
Okay, so while the bones and the meat are blanching, we are going to char some vegetables. And the reason we do this is so that we can add some smokiness to the flavor, add some depth.
I like to bring that heat.
All right. Listen to that sizzle.
This is like 3 pounds of onions, like 25 cloves of garlic.
This is what we're talking about. Oh my goodness.
That's what I like to see. This might take a while because there's a lot of vegetables that we have to go through. Yeah, ooh, look great.
Right?
It's so nice and caramelized. It's about 10 minutes. I took a nap, made her do all the hard work, but I got you a tray.
If you don't char your vegetables, that's also okay. But all those like black bits here, it really enhances the flavor, right? It's like flavor bits.
Yeah, flavor bits. We have our hard vegetables. Thank you, Inka, for making it happen. I'll make sure I put more work in so this group project doesn't become a failure.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, this is what the bones look like after being boiled and skimmed a bit. So we're just gonna take them out. Time to go fishing.
You see that layer of fat?
Oh my, that's how much stuff came out of it. This has a lot of impurities and kind of the weird bits from the bones. Not really that great to save, so I'm gonna go dump this out so we can get a cleaner broth going.
I'll leave the heavy labor to you,
You
Alvin.
sure? Yeah, I gotta literally carry my weight. Oh. We have to put the bones back in. Here we go. Oh, that's splattered.
So we have the charred vegetables from earlier, shiitake mushrooms. I love these. These are so good in every type of broth. Ready?
What is those?
These are, what is that?
What are those?
These are leeks.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Go.
Ooh, make it rain. Well, this is like, what, 3 bunches
Yep.
of scallions we got.
Eat your vegetables, children.
Thanks, Mom.
Woo!
I'll get higher than you can.
I don't think that was a good idea.
It's not
Okay,
good.
all right,
Let's go
all right,
lower.
all right, all right.
This is gonna need to cook for like 8 to 12 hours?
8 to
Because it's
12
like
hours?
a really
Oh.
nice broth that cooks for a long time.
We're basically slowly simmering it.
I'm gonna take this into the back to cook. Oh my God, this
Right?
is so heavy. We're gonna make some ramen noodles from scratch.
As you guys can see, we have a couple of ingredients here: flour, water, and kansui, also known as lye water. It's a sort of alkaline solution. I don't want to get too scientific here, but what it does is it makes noodles chewier. That's what gives it that sort of like springy mouthfeel.
I've never made these before.
Me neither.
All right, let's just get to it.
All
So it's kind of like pasta, but like there's no egg, right?
Yeah.
All right, here we
Slowly
go.
but surely.
And this is lye water, kicking up a notch. Oh, it's making a sound. Oh.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah,
Press
look at
down
that
on it,
spring.
it comes back.
I feel like since you did a lot of the work with the vegetables, I gotta pull my weight. You know, you can't be the guy in the group projects that just like sits back, does nothing, and then just like shows up on the last day. I was like, oh, hey guys, how's it going? Oh, you finished? Oh, thanks. Thanks for the aid.
Alvin talks a lot.
Sorry, it's the first time I've had a friend on the show. Usually it's just lonely and me.
That's true.
So-
You can tell that there's a lot of, what is it? Gluten.
Gluten.
Yes.
My boy
There
gluten.
is a lot of gluten because it's taking a lot of like arm work out to do this.
You want me to
right?
get back in there?
No.
You good? Okay.
Sorry.
You're literally standing up in between.
It is becoming
It is
smoother,
getting, yeah,
right?
it's smooth. Yeah, like, it's nice.
And you don't slap it.
I mean, how else do you check if it's smooth? I'm gonna say this is done. How do you feel?
We just need to let it rest a little, relax a little, and then we can roll it out into some nudes.
Go,
All
have you
right,
done
let's
this
go. Yes, I
That wasn't
have.
as dramatic as I thought it was gonna be. All right, I'll take half, you take half. Ooh, that's satisfying.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's like a mochi ice cream.
It is.
It's like a giant mochi ice cream. Would not taste like it. 2
Oh.
out of 10, do not recommend.
We're just flattening out so then it can go through the pasta machine.
All right, so this is currently set at 0. 0 is the thickest setting. We're gonna start with that and then see where we can go from here.
Oh, come on, look at mine.
All right, you go first.
Ready?
Ready? Ooh.
There we go.
All right, okay, not bad.
So
Keep
that's the
going.
beginning. It has to be a gradual process. Slowly, you get it thinner and thinner, which is why we're going, what, from 0 to...
0 to 7.
To 7.
Like many times. It's
Yes.
pretty labor intensive.
This is why you need 2 people, man. Squish, squish, squish. Whoa, this is so
One
silly.
giant noodle. We have the fettuccine attachment. I'm gonna put the crank over here, and then if you want to feed it through.
Okay,
Oh, you got it?
I do got it.
You got it?
Oh dear.
Damn.
All right. Whoa! That's
All right,
pretty
it's,
good.
it's okay. That's 1.
All right, let's go.
I'm gonna use my dough. I might be here for a couple of hours. Broth is still cooking. 8 to 12 hours is a very long time. So we're gonna get started on the pork, the chashu. We have a pork belly here. I think it's a beautiful piece of meat. Let's get gloves on because this might get a little bit messy.
Rolling it up because you know how when you go to ramen shops, you see that perfect circle of meat? That's what we're trying to replicate.
We're gonna need to tie it though, because if we roll it up,
Yeah.
it needs to stay together.
Yeah.
So how about one person ties, the other person has to hold it together.
All right, hold it tight.
Hold it tight, roll it up tight. I'm gonna go under the meat. And then, oh, wait, that side came out.
Oh, it is slippery.
Yeah.
Come on, Alvin.
You wanna try?
Huh.
Oh my God.
Is it good? Is it tight
Pretty good.
enough?
Oh, my pinkies. I keep on.
There we go.
No fingers are lost today.
All right, we have it in the pot. We're gonna add the braising liquid, the soy sauce first. I know it looks like a lot of soy sauce. Remember, this is a giant pork roll.
Yeah, there's like 3 bunches of scallions in here.
This is sake.
gonna save some for me.
Alvin would run off with this. Then the sweet wine, mirin, and garlic.
I got your ginger. Look at that, good timing.
We'll add a little bit of water to top it off.
We're gonna braise this for a while until it gets really nice, really tender. The fat's gonna come out.
And all of that sauce that just went in there, it's gonna seep right into the meat.
Yeah.
Goodbye, pork baby. You ready for this?
I wanna see how it works with these two.
1, 2, 3.
That's me, that's the richest man in the world, and that's the burger I just made him. But there's a catch. The patty in that burger is made from this stuff. And the reason I can eat it raw is it's made entirely from plants. As you guys know, every year I dedicate one of my 12 videos to showcase how clever people are using science and technology to change the world for the better. So for example, 2 years ago was a paper centrifusion microscope that could diagnose malaria for 51 cents versus $10,000 for traditional equipment. And then last year was a magical powder that helps poorer countries turn contaminated muddy water into clear drinking water. That's also when I first met Bill, and he earned my forever respect after I microwaved up some pizza rolls for him, and he ate them like a champ. I've been loosely following the progress of plant-based meat for a couple years now, and allegedly it looks and tastes like meat, yet it's made from plants. Now, at the top of this video, I feel like I should start with a confession. I eat meat, like, kind of a lot. I've had some form of meat at pretty much every meal since I was a kid. My favorite genre of food is barbecue. And so be that as it may, as a firm believer in the scientific method, I feel like it's time for me just to really buckle down and get to the bottom of this plant-based meat thing. And so today on my quest for answers, I'm looking at 3 main questions. Number 1, how does it taste? And not just that, but how does it look and feel and smell? How successfully does it trick my brain into thinking this is real meat? Number 2, is it good for me? If it does trick my brain, what the heck is in it? Is it just some kind of like lab chemical concoction? And also, how does it compare to like the protein from a real burger? And number 3, is it good for the planet? And on this one, I have a hunch that it is, but is it like, meh, that's a little better? Or is it like 100 times better? Now, I should say a big motivation for me, and something I think even my fellow meat eaters could agree on, is that the concept of factory farms isn't great. The whole cows that have never seen a blade of grass thing, and pigs, which by most accounts are smarter than dogs, that live their entire lives indoors on crowded concrete. These factories are efficient. They're optimized for driving down costs, not for animal well-being. And I'm not trying to be a downer, it's just something I don't like to think about when I'm eating my In-N-Out burger or Chick-fil-A. And it's a lame excuse, but I feel like I sort of never have had a good alternative option. I mean, historically, this is a veggie burger, and nothing about this works as a burger for me. But in recent years, the strategy shifted to target people exactly like me. Basically try and make it as close to real meat as possible, which reduces friction for trying a plant-based option. So their goal is, if I'm going meatless at the summer barbecue, instead of a quinoa salad, I can still enjoy the full experience of a burger with my friends. And so on that note, let's get right into question number 1. Throw this puppy on the grill. Sizzle. Definitely sounds like a burger and even smells like it. And you're getting like the fat dripping down, which is causing the flames to come up. So far the experience feels pretty analogous to just grilling a burger. When I lick the fork, it definitely tastes like there was meat on this fork. All right, this cuts and feels exactly like a real burger. But before I officially taste it, I kind of want to know exactly what's in there. And to do that, I'm going to fly out to the 2 companies who are the leader in this space, Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods. At Beyond Meat, the first thing they showed me were the labs where they do all their research. Are these actors or these are real scientists?
These are scientists, yeah.
This feels like Jurassic Park, you know, where like you need the tour and you have... And right out of the gate, they put my mind at ease and showed me a tray of all the main stuff that makes up their burgers. Apparently, they work on not just the taste, but they have teams of researchers working on the texture, color, the smell, the grilling sound, even the same amount of calories and protein as a meat burger. Their goal is to make it as frictionless as possible for people like me to make the switch. So they have these for the color, coconut and sunflower oil for the fat so it sizzles on the grill, potatoes for carbohydrates, and then these for the protein, the majority coming from yellow peas. These burgers are better for you because they have no cholesterol, but they do have saturated fat from the coconut oil, so you shouldn't think of this as healthy as like a plain salad with no dressing. After getting the full tour, I was feeling pretty good, so it was time for the real test in the kitchen. I've intentionally kept my taste buds virgin.
Okay, great.
I haven't tasted it, and I had opportunities, but like, no, I want to wait. No pressure. But next week, I'm going to meet Bill Gates.
Yeah.
And I have to cook for him. You're like a professional chef, right?
I am.
In the next like 20 minutes, You need to transfer all that knowledge from your brain into mine, okay? We started with their Italian sausage, made of course just from plants, and Chef Chris showed me some power moves to impress Bill with on the grill. I'm so scared.
Cheers.
Okay, cheers. Even pudding flavor aside,
I think Bill will be okay with a little bit of a juice.
there's no way I would have guessed I wasn't actually eating real meat.
That's pretty good. Cheers.
Cheers. That's really good. I need one more taste. It's freaking good.
Thank you.
Next up was their burger, which it turns out was equally amazing. Genuinely, when you can surround it with burger stuff, it's really hard to tell.
There's no way to tell.
My next trip was to Impossible Foods, and they actually let me make a burger myself just from the ingredients in these bowls.
So the first thing that we're gonna do is add the water to the soy protein, and then we're gonna add the potato protein.
Okay.
So the next thing we're gonna put in is our magic ingredient, which do you know what this is?
Red number 5. It's just food.
So this is our magic ingredient. It's called heme, which is short for hemoglobin. Heme is responsible for making meat taste like meat. That's found in every living plant and animal. You can get heme from soy plants.
I see.
You don't have to get it from animals.
Next, we added the cellulose-based culinary binder to hold everything together. And then finally, the coconut and sunflower oils.
Have you done any pastry work in your life?
Oh, tons of
Okay,
pastry.
you're gonna like fold and smush.
All my pastry work's shining through.
You literally just made the Impossible Burger yourself.
Like five little cups.
Five bowls, yeah.
One of them was water.
One of them was water.
So now I think it's time to cook one of these up.
96% of the folks who are ordering our product are self-identified meat eaters.
I'm definitely your target demo. I grew up, like, if the meal didn't have meat in it, it wasn't a meal.
When it delivers in that same characteristic that meat does, it really proves the point that we're providing a no-compromises alternative for those meat eaters out there to make a different choice.
This raised an interesting point. Meat has been cleverly marketed with being a real man because real men need their protein.
That's what a man eats. Made from stuff guys need. Eat like a man.
But the truth is, even meat eaters like me get roughly half their protein a day from plants by eating things that contain some kind of beans, peas, nuts, or whole grains like corn, rice, and oats. In fact, many high-performance athletes are switching to a plant-based diet because studies have shown it can help reduce measures of inflammation by almost 30% in just 3 weeks, and inflammation makes it harder to recover after a workout. So if a plant-based diet is good enough for Arnold Schwarzenegger, Kyrie Irving, Lewis Hamilton, Venus and Serena Williams, Nate Diaz, and a growing butt ton of others, it's probably good enough for me and my weekly rec league soccer game.
Ballin' like curry.
You can ultimately utilize this in any way you would use traditional ground beef.
So tacos, lasagna, meatballs.
Name it.
They're so good. This is a plant-based burger, and look at the mess I'm making. So obviously, I thought their burgers were also really good, but I felt like I wanted a larger sample size before I felt truly confident feeding Bill. So I invited some friends to a local restaurant that serves Impossible Burgers. And the thing is, you can't always trust adults because they might just change their answer to be nice.
It's really good.
Kids, on the other hand, are brutally honest. So we ordered them plant-based burgers too, but might have neglected to mention it to them beforehand.
What do you think?
It's really good.
There's no meat in that burger.
Wait, what? You're lying.
Plants.
What?
That was a plant burger. You ate a plant burger.
Instead of meat, it was vegetables. It just tastes like extra juicy.
And so, feeling more confident than ever, it was time to visit Bill, put my culinary skills to the test, and see if he could help me answer my final question. So I'm back in Bill's kitchen. He's gonna be here in an hour, and I need some groceries. Bill. It's good to see you again. So I've been working hard in your kitchen.
Perfect.
And I kind of wanted to talk to you about plant-based meat, and I thought maybe we could try them out as well.
Sure.
But as a control, I know you're a big fan of Dick's Burgers. So to kind of cleanse the palate, I thought we could just take a bite.
That's the real thing.
The real thing. As a non-Seattle native, I've got to say, I think this may be an acquired taste.
Yeah, you get used to a certain burger.
And so now it's time for my cooking. What do you think?
It's quite good. mean, that's light years away from what they used to make.
Like the traditional veggie burger?
Right. You know, the quality's going to keep getting better. The plant-based guys are not done innovating. Eventually, they claim you won't be able to tell the difference.
Next up was my killer bratwurst.
Wow. Well, that's pretty good.
And at this point in my quest, I felt like I had a pretty good lock on questions 1 and 2. So I asked him about number 3.
The agriculture sector is about 18% of overall emission, but livestock is about half of that 18%.
Wow.
And almost all of that is beef.
Is this like cow farts, cow burps?
Slightly more burps than farts, but it's a mix of those two.
To put that into perspective, that means that sector alone is responsible for more greenhouse gases than all the cars, trucks, trains, ships, and planes combined. Turns out it takes a lot of stuff to make a cow.
Very inefficient, particularly beef, is almost 8 to 1. You use 8 calories to feed that cow for every calorie of meat you get out, because you're building bone and respiration for that cow.
Now, this was a really good point I hadn't fully considered. If you think about it, as humans, we're really solar powered. We eat plants, but they get their energy from the sun. Then you might be like, we also eat animals though. But they get their energy from plants too, which again, get their energy from the sun. So when it comes to getting our energy from the sun, animals are an inefficient middleman. We get on average 10% of our calories or energy in a day from meat. That might sound reasonable until you look at the amount of resources it takes to make that meat compared to the other 90%. If you combined all the land in the US dedicated to raising animals, you would get an area like this. And then plus this much more to grow the crops needed to feed those animals. Now remember, all of that is for the middleman, for 10% of our daily energy. Now compare that to the amount of land needed for crops we actually eat ourselves directly. That relatively small chunk of land is where the overwhelming majority of our personal energy comes from. And it's not just land resources, but water as well. To end up with 24 hamburger patties, it requires the amount of water you see in this pool. That same amount of water could make 75 loaves of whole grain bread and 30 jars of peanut butter. So if I made myself a delicious peanut butter sandwich, which has nearly the identical amounts of both calories and proteins compared to this patty, and then I ate 2 a day, the meat would last me a little over a week, and the sandwiches would last me a little over a year. So that's the same amount of resources used, same amount of calories and protein to me per serving. One just lasted me a year longer because it's a much more efficient energy transfer method. This is why a plant-based diet is a way more efficient use of natural resources. We could feed an additional 3.5 billion people worldwide if all countries just ate the stuff they fed to animals. And here's why that fact matters.
Particularly as people get richer, they tend to eat more meat. If we don't do anything, this sector will actually grow over time.
So you're saying not just the fact that there's more people and a larger population, but as people move up towards the middle class, they want to consume more meat.
And you can certainly see that this is true when you look at the amount of meat consumed over the past 50 years. Given the resources required, a trajectory for meat consumption like this is simply unsustainable. A few decades ago, meat was considered a luxury product, but now it's a commodity for a growing number of people. In fact, the demand is growing so much, it now makes sense for farmers in the Amazon just to burn it down and to turn that forest into grazing land for animals. We've irreversibly lost 20% of the Amazon so far. And that's a double gut punch, because now not only is that more cow farts adding to climate change, but when you burn those trees, all the carbon stored inside them goes back into the atmosphere as the greenhouse gas CO2.
One of the great tragedies about climate is that it's the poorest in the world, the farmers who live fairly near to the equator, that all this heat and flooding and droughts, they're going to suffer by far the most. If you're just trying to get people to cut back, don't eat meat, don't drive to work, don't take trips, it's such a dramatic set of sacrifices that everybody has to engage in, that without innovation, we're probably gonna go way past the 2 degrees.
And that last part is the silver lining. Plant-based meat is the exact kind of innovation Bill's referring to here. And I'm optimistic because as the demand for plant-based meats goes up, the price will come down, much lower than actual meat. So then not only will the experience be identical to eating meat, but it's better for you, better for animals, and much better for the planet. Oh, and it also costs half as much. It just becomes a really easy decision for people to switch in massive numbers. this. All right, so what does this all mean? Now that I've completed my quest for answers, where do I stand? And I'll say it still makes me really uncomfortable to think about these factory farms or the Amazon being burned down to make room for more cows. But at the same time, I can't really blame these poor remote farmers who know nothing about what a greenhouse gas is for just trying to feed their family. As long as the demand for meat continues to grow, there will be an incentive to be not cool to our mutual friend, Mother Earth. So the most effective thing we can do is try and reduce that demand. So after all this, I'm not a vegan. I'm not even strictly on a plant-based diet, but I have reduced the amount of meat I consume by more than half, and I feel great. Importantly, I've broken from that weird mindset that for it to be considered a true meal, it has to have some form of meat. So if any part of this video rang true to you, I would say don't take my word for it, try it for yourself. You can find plant-based meat options in thousands of restaurants and even at Burger King and Carl's Jr. Most grocery stores have a whole section dedicated to them so you can substitute it into your favorite home-cooked meal. And remember, it doesn't have to be binary, like you either eat no meat or you're frickin' Ron Swanson. If a bunch of people did Meatless Monday, for example, that would have a huge impact on demand. Some of the challenges we face globally can feel pretty daunting, and so I love seeing clever people innovating on the front lines, trying to make it as easy as possible for the rest of us to make the right choices. It gives me hope about our future here together and inspires me to want to do my part. I want to thank Bill and Melinda Gates for partnering with me on this video. They just released the brand new Gates annual letter, and I will leave a link to it in the video description. In it, they talk about the big risks they've taken in education and global health over the last 2 decades of their foundation, and why for the next 2 decades, they'll continue making big bets, only this time in gender equality and climate. And Bill's major focus on climate change involves both mitigation and adaptation to keep making progress for making our planet a better place to live. In fact, I will close with a bit of a teaser from the man himself.
You know, I actually thought of all the toughest climate problems that livestock was going to be the toughest. Now with these companies and other ones coming along in this space, I'd say steel and cement are now the two that I'm still scratching my head.
Well, if anyone's going to be scratching their head to solve the problem, I think humanity is grateful. Bill Gates is the one doing it. So on behalf of, I don't know, the world, we appreciate the efforts you're making in this. I have some celebratory pizza rolls. Last year, actually, they're frozen. You know what?
Thank you.
It's just a prop. I'll spare you.
You tricked me, Marco Rovo!
About a year ago, I read about this powder you could add to super muddy water like this, and then you stir it up, and 5 minutes later, the mud has separated from the pure, clean, drinkable water. And as a man of science, I see this, and it feels like nothing short of magic. I only make 12 videos a year, so I am really picky about what topics I will cover. And even though I usually just focus on using science and engineering to make totally ridiculous things, at least once a year, I try to make the case that these same science and engineering principles are also being used to actually change the world for the better. For example, last year I met with Manu Prakash from Stanford, who was disappointed to realize the typical microscope and centrifuge to diagnose malaria costs tens of thousands of dollars and needs to be plugged in. So he invented a paper microscope and a paper centrifuge that costs 68 cents, they can diagnose malaria and require no electricity. So today we're gonna find out how this was invented, how the heck it works, and how it's being used to help people all around the world. But first, to demonstrate this isn't some kind of smoke and mirrors trick, I located the nastiest water I could find near my house and met up with some intrepid field scientists. Today I'm joined by my friends Cole, Caden, Rainey, and Max. I promised them they could be in a video, but I didn't tell them which one or what we'd be doing. And here's the deal, guys. We need to go into that pond that's all gross and nasty and fill it up with muddy water. Can you do that? You guys think this would be good to drink this? What do you guys give me if I take a sip of this?
20 bucks.
20 bucks? Okay. We're not gonna do anything to this one, but I'm gonna do something to this one so then we can compare the two, okay? So I'm gonna take a little bit of this powder, I'm gonna put it in here. You guys see this? And then we're gonna take turns shaking it for like 5 minutes, okay? see what happens.
That looks better. Yeah, that looks really good. Oh, that looks like...
Okay, I'm gonna put my thumb at the water level so you know I'm not tricking you guys, okay?
Unless you're a car insurance expert, maybe they are.
Some high quality H2O right there. All right, where's my 20 bucks, Rainey? Chances are, if you're watching this video, you have essentially an endless supply of clean water at the pull of a lever. And because this is so easy, we tend to forget just how critical water is for us. You can live 3 weeks without food, but only a few days without water. And it's not just us. From plants to ants to bacteria, anything that is biological and living needs water to survive. It sounds crazy, but there are no exceptions to this rule. Because of this, when NASA is looking for evidence of life outside our planet, we first start by looking for evidence of water. Given all that, it's a total bummer that nearly 1 billion people around the world don't have access to clean drinking water. Today, drinking contaminated water causes more deaths than HIV, AIDS, and malaria combined. And so that's why the powder in this packet is a really big deal. It was invented by a guy named Philip Suter. He's a laundry scientist at Procter & Gamble who's originally trying to figure out a way to separate dirt from used laundry water. And I want to be clear here, they are not sponsoring this video in any way. I just think what they're doing is really awesome and they deserve some credit. So I was actually able to track Philip down and he told me all about how it works.
So essentially there's three processes. There's coagulation, then the next phase is flocculation, and then the last piece is the disinfection.
You start with clean water like this, but now it's all brown because it's filled with lots of dirt particles, parasites, and bacteria. So you dump the powder in the water, and as Phil explained, the coagulant part of the powder goes to work first. It's basically seed crystals that are positively charged. And because the dirt in the water is negatively charged, these seed crystals act like dirt magnets. These dirt magnets grow until they're each about 1 millimeter in size. The next part of the powder to activate is the flocculant, which is a polymer which you can think about as having huge long arms that wrap up all the little dirt magnet clumps, and now they form bigger chunks as large as a centimeter. And these chunks now are so big, they're just slightly more dense than the water, which means they sink to the bottom. And finally, the chlorine is released, and it goes to work on killing the 99.9999% of all the really tiny viruses and bacteria that are left in the water that didn't get wrapped up and sink to the bottom. So now you're just left with safe drinking water at the top. And this isn't just some PR stunt for P&G. Since 2004, millions of people in over 90 countries have used these packets, and they've saved untold thousands upon thousands of lives. In fact, they've cleaned enough water to fill a swimming pool that is the typical 5 feet deep by 15 feet across, only the length would need to stretch all the way across the United States over 13 times. These packets cost them pennies to make, which they sell at a loss, and that feels like the right thing to do. But it brings up the question, is there a case to be made beyond altruism where it's in the best interest of the rich countries to help out the poor countries? And to answer this question, I wanted to speak with someone in the technology sector who had some experience in this kind of thing. And he's a bit of an obscure up-and-comer named Bill Gates. But first, I had to do a little bit of research in order to get myself up to Seattle. When I arrived, they told me I was free to make myself at home while I waited for him to show up. So I did what any rational person would do given the circumstances. I made the richest man on planet Earth some pizza rolls.
Hi.
Phil, good to meet you.
Yeah, thanks for doing this.
They gave me free reign of your kitchen, and as a token of hospitality, I whipped up a batch of pizza rolls.
Oh, wow. I'll try it. It's not what I normally eat. It's pretty hot, actually.
They're kind of like lava in the middle.
Not bad.
Is it okay, right?
All
A little bit of cardboard.
What do you got here?
This is plan B, because I wasn't expecting you to actually eat one of those.
Okay.
Dick's Burgers.
Love Dick's.
I know you love...
It's a Seattle phenomenon.
Truth be told, I actually knew this after seeing a picture of him on Reddit. He's standing in line by himself to buy one of their hamburgers for less than $2. I hate to disappoint you. There's no Dick's Burgers in here.
Okay.
We have some liquid refreshment.
That's pretty dark looking.
So I took out the powder and explained to him how it worked, and then I set up the bottles, and here's where we stood after a minute or two.
Looks like we're making some progress, although the top there, I'd rather eat these than that so far.
Why should we care about developing nations?
Well, the amount of resource that rich countries spend in helping poor countries is pretty small. It's well less than 1% of their budget. I defend that because that money is so impactful. You're saving lives for less than $1,000 per life saved. If you help a country lift itself up, then countries like Indonesia, Vietnam, India get successful enough. They grow their economy so they no longer need aid. They graduate.
Okay, look at this.
Yeah, it's amazing the way that a small
Isn't it crazy?
amount of this thing.
It's like magic. And I liked his answer that basically teaching a man to fish is better than just giving a man a fish. What about the extreme case of a person who's just super self-absorbed who might think, I just don't care if a poor country has a fish or not. It doesn't affect my daily life. I asked what he would say to that person.
The benefits are strong, even if the pure humanitarian, empathetic part isn't the key reason.
So then Bill told me two main reasons we should try and help developing nations, even from a selfish standpoint. The first is for our own safety. If a poor country receives aid, it fosters education and economic opportunity, which makes it more stable. And there's less of a reason for people to become desperate, which is a breeding ground for radical ideologies and terrorism. All America's top generals agree that foreign aid creates stability, which reduces the need for military spending and makes the world a safer place. Additionally, Bill told me there's the issue of diseases. When the next pandemic comes, there's a good chance it will be far worse than Ebola, and it will spread quickly into the rich countries. There's a huge benefit to us in helping these developing nations get their health systems to the point where they can detect and treat bad stuff before it has the chance to go global. And the second selfish reason for helping developing nations that we discussed together was for our own prosperity.
After World War II, you think, hey, do we care about Japan? Well, hey, then Japan, you know, Sony and Toyota, they're making good products. Yeah, let's not forget Nintendo. It's a win-win situation, you know, where we want Japan to do well and make great products, and, you know, they're buying Boeing jets, Microsoft software, and so having these...
Hypothetically.
Hopefully. The idea that other countries doing well, it's not a zero-sum thing where, okay, if they do well, that means that it's bad for us.
Basically, we needed to get the Japanese back to a point where their brains could benefit the world again as quickly as possible. Otherwise, it's a waste of human capital, and the world never knows Super Mario Brothers. Which raises an interesting point. If you ask people who is the most intelligent person to ever live, you get various answers like these.
Albert Einstein.
Albert Einstein.
Albert Einstein.
Did I tell you to say that?
But the fact is, with 100 billion people to have ever lived on planet Earth, it's a statistical certainty that Albert Einstein wasn't the most intelligent human. It was some random person you've never heard of, probably born a long time ago, who spent most of their daily energy just trying to survive. And that's why these packets are a huge deal. When you have nearly 1 billion people spending their time just trying to find clean water every day, that's a huge waste of untapped brain power. Now, these packets and other aid efforts like them allow parents to stay healthy and gives them time to provide for their families, which gives their kids the opportunity to get educated, which in turn creates more opportunities for the following generation. And so eventually, over time, the entire world starts reaping the benefit from the contribution of this previously untapped human capital. And in this way, some massive breakthrough in solar technology, or maybe the cure to cancer or HIV, might come from a poor country who is just a developing nation today. And I find that to be incredibly inspiring and a worthy goal. I want to thank Bill and Melinda Gates for partnering with me on this video. They just released the brand new Gates annual letter. I will leave a link to it in the video description. It's a great read if you want to learn how life has and will continue to improve for the world's poorest. Plus, you get to be inspired by people who've just made it their life's mission to make the world a better place.
You know, I get to learn a lot. You know, I'm going to be working on these diseases the rest of my life.
Bill Gates, living legend, eater of pizza rolls.
Yeah, not bad.
That was fantastic. Thanks so much, Bill. Now we drink. I was challenged to create electricity to support this beast. It's Volkswagen's carbon fiber dual engine, faster than a Formula One electric supercar, for the upcoming infamous 12.5-mile Pikes Peak race to the top of a really high mountain in Colorado. and they gave me no further instructions on how they wanted it done. So I thought, how cool would it be to charge it up using one of those science fair lemon batteries? And since I'm pretty sure using only one lemon isn't going to cut it, my plan is to build the Guinness World Record world's largest lemon battery. And when it comes to making ridiculous things, no one is better at that than fellow YouTube engineer, William P. Osmond. Oh. The first video I saw of yours was when you biohacked your dog. How did that work?
Not well. We tried to dangle a hot dog in front of a dog's face on a mechanical backpack, and then you can steer the hot dog to try to get the dog to change directions. And what he ended up doing was sitting down and eating them.
So we've estimated this should take about 3 days for us to build, and yet I've only allotted 2 minutes for this in the video. So you know what that means.
You plan on your videos working?
Battery setup to just be a mangled mess of wires. So William had the brilliant idea to water jet out a bunch of copper and zinc strips, which we could then assemble into racks. We wired the first half of the racks to be in parallel, and that was in series with the second half of the racks, which were also all in parallel. And then at that point, all we had to do was impale some lemons. Speaking of which, in addition to harvesting from my own backyard, I visited some local farms and got their Class 2 lemons, which means they couldn't be sold in stores because they were either overripe, misshapen, or too small. And when one finds oneself in possession of 1,232 lemons, turns out you can't not do this. What's my safe word? So here we have the world's largest lemon battery, and now is the moment of truth to see just how much power this could actually make for us. But in order to understand the results, let's first review how a lemon can even make power in the first place. The trick is picking the right metals to stick into the lemon. In this case, zinc really wants to get rid of electrons, and then copper really wants to collect them. But they can't do that unless they're connected by some kind of electrolyte, and that's the lemon juice. Once that happens, an electrochemical reaction occurs at the base, and the electrons can now move. And moving electrons is the very definition of electricity. It's sort of like how the water up high in the full cup naturally wants to flow to the empty cup lower down. But it can't do that until you connect the two with the straw, which allows the water to flow. So in this case, obviously, the higher cup is the zinc, the lower cup is the copper, and the straw is the lemon. And so then the flowing water represents our electricity or power. And so with that,
we were measuring just under 5 volts. And the short circuit current is not great, Mark. Basically, our lemon battery is awful.
Yeah.
Like, it's impressive.
No.
The fact that it works as well as it does is cool, but as well as it works is not well. Does that make any sense? It's like...
Whatever you just said. Just stop. It sucks. And to quantify the suckiness better, you can listen to a motor running off our 1,200 lemons versus a single AA battery. So it wasn't looking good for the car, but we weren't about to let 3 days of work go down the drain.
So because the battery produces so little power, we use a tiny, tiny high gear ratio motor, 1500 to 1, to charge up our potential energy, which is more lemons. So it should take about 15 minutes to lift this bag, and then we can release that all at once to activate our lemon juicing mechanism.
Basically, like, all of these guys are working together to, like, drain the lifeblood from one of their brethren.
Maybe this was too dark.
Yeah! Okay, William, moment of truth.
I am so excited.
Give me some of that.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, delicious.
Wow.
Refreshing. Organic.
Not worth 10 hours.
Amazing.
12 hours.
Totally worth it. This is the most expensive glass of lemonade you will ever have.
Yes, that actually I think is a fact.
It's a win in my book.
I'm gonna finish this.
I'm not. So we let the lemons trickle charge for a couple days, and after that, the total power we harvested for the Volkswagen racing team was the equivalent of a single AA battery. And I should mention that since the race team is busy getting the car ready for the race in Colorado, they have sent me this monstrous 48 kilowatt hour battery that can drive itself. So the plan is I will add any power we generate here in California to this battery and then get this to them in time for the race in Colorado. So the measly lemon power is now inside, but clearly I need to think of a plan B. Luckily, I had an idea, which was to take some pulleys and a skateboard wheel and a brushless motor, then some custom machined aluminum plates and a steel cable to make a zip line with regenerative braking to charge a drill battery. And it seemed to actually be working. All I needed now was a party with some family friends and their kids. This is how much energy is in the battery. We need to get it from empty all the way up to full. That's where I need you guys. Because what happens is as you go down on this zip line, it charges the battery. The worst part about a zip line is when you have to go down and then drag it back up the hill. But I've got a little remote control here. Watch this.
Whoa.
Is that cool?
Yeah.
You guys want to ride that?
Yeah.
You ready? The mechanical advantage of the sloped hill disguises it well, but the amount of energy they are adding to our zipline system here by running up the hill just one time is the same energy used for the world record deadlift. And to help provide power to their leg muscles, we repurposed our lemon battery lemons into fresh lemonade, and everyone had to take a drink before running up the hill. Because as they say, when life gives you 1,200 lemons, make lemonade. Then force kids to drink it to power your regenerative zipline. So the zipline was awesome, and we ended up charging up one of these portable drill batteries plus a little more. Now, for those of you keeping track at home, here's how I'm doing so far. The lemons have enough power to move the supercar about this far on a soccer field. And then with the lemonade and the kids' muscles and the zipline, it can now travel an additional 2 soccer fields. The problem is, the race is 200 soccer fields long, which means if we were to try and charge the car, we'd be 198 soccer fields short. So clearly, that kind of power will not be breaking any records. So I've got to come up with a plan C. And to do that, I'm gonna harness the power of the sun. And in hindsight, I probably should have started here, because if you think about it, all the energy sources we use are actually solar power. Oil and coal and natural gas is just old decayed plants and swamps that originally got their power from the sun using their leaves and photosynthesis. Even things like wind turbines are really solar power because the wind blows when the sun heats up the atmosphere unevenly. In the case of hydroelectric dams, the water got to the lake on the high side because of rain from the clouds. And clouds are a result of water that has been evaporated by, you guessed it, the sun. As humans, we are even solar power because we get our energy from plants or animals that ate plants, which again, get their power from the sun. So if I'm looking for some energy to fill up a battery, instead of indirectly and inefficiently going through a bunch of different energy sources and losing a bunch at every step along the way, it makes way more sense to just go directly to the source. And so with that in mind, I busted out the power tools and put 24 100-watt solar panels over our garage. But there was a problem with this. When NASA sent the solar-powered twin rovers to Mars in 2004, it didn't take long until the solar panels were totally covered in dust, which effectively crippled the rover because they couldn't get as much energy from the sun. And this was a huge issue. But then we got lucky and a mini tornado came by and cleaned them off, restoring the power. It turns out these mini tornadoes are actually pretty common on Mars, which is why she is still driving around today, nearly more than 14 years later. This is also in part why on the next rover we sent to Mars, we just killed the issue altogether and slapped a nuclear reactor on the back. And while California isn't Mars, it does get pretty dusty here, so to ensure that wouldn't happen to me, I invited over some really smart future engineers, scientists, and creators. And after explaining the problem and demonstrating how severely it limits the power output from the panels, I challenged them to come up with and build a solution. And because our brains use up 20% of all the energy our body produces, I made them drink more lemonade to ensure I got an optimal solution. And so after pitching each other their ideas, they settled on one and got to work. Personally, I thought it was brilliant and it's worked extremely well. And after they left, I hooked it up to my lawn sprinkler system, so they go off for a few minutes once a week now. And so after a few days of being bombarded by photons from space, we finally had the battery all charged up to full capacity. So in the end, I learned a lot and we actually pulled it off. And now if you'll excuse me, I have an urgent delivery deadline to meet in Colorado. Okay, you like it, Eliza? Okay.
This is a Pinewood Derby car. It comes in a kit, then you build it and put it together, and then it uses gravity to go down a track. So over 100 million of these cars have been built and raised by kids over the past 60 years. Which means over 100 million dads have spent a lot of time at the workbench and then subsequently pretended their kid helped in some meaningful way. But don't feel bad for the boys, because someday they'll grow up to be dads, and then they'll get a chance to work on a car of their very own. Now this is a much faster Pinewood Derby car. Oh wait, this was my entry. I was disqualified because apparently using jet propulsion goes against the spirit of the competition. This is a much faster legal car. But what is it about this one that makes it so much faster than this one? Really, is it the wheels? Is it the weight placement? Is it the axles? And of the design features that influence speed, which one of those is the most important? For example, do aerodynamics really play a role? So today, we're gonna use cold hard science to figure out how you can maximize your chance of taking home the trophy with the least amount of effort. There are a lot of opinions on how you build a fast car, and spoiler alert, some of the most popular ones are completely false. And at the end of the video, to prove science is in fact true, I'll show you a car I built in 45 minutes based on what I learned, and then show you how it did in competition. So let's start with the fundamentals. The Pinewood Derby is all about conservation of energy. The amount of energy you start the race with is the same amount of energy you end the race with. It's just a different kind. So each of these blocks represents a unit of energy. So at the beginning of the race, it's all potential energy, which is the energy associated with height. So when you start, the higher your center of mass is on the track, the more of it you have. And then at the end of the race, in a perfect world, all that potential energy has been converted to kinetic energy, block for block. And kinetic energy is the energy of speed. So you were really high on the track, and as you came down, all that height was converted into speed. And you notice I said in a perfect world, because in reality, we lose some of that kinetic energy to friction. It's dissipated through heat. But you will notice that these two piles of friction and kinetic energy still add up to the original potential energy we started with. Energy is conserved. So if you can reduce friction, that means you're going to have more kinetic energy, and that is the key. This pile is the key to winning the race because it has the speed term in there. And whoever has the higher pile of blocks here wins the race every time. So for the rest of this video, we're gonna discuss what truly matters in maximizing your kinetic energy, or your speed, or this pile. How do you make this pile as big as possible with the least amount of effort? Okay, so before we go any further, I want to introduce you to someone I met while doing the research for building the perfect Pinewood Derby car.
My name is Scott Acton, and I'm a physicist for Ball Aerospace. About 10 years ago, my son and I kicked my wife's car out of the garage and we converted it into the Pinewood Derby Research Facility. For almost a year, we conducted experiments and used the laws of physics to determine exactly what it takes to make a winning Pinewood Derby race car.
And what I love about Dr. Acton is that instead of just making blind statements like 99% of the information you find out there, he used the scientific method to test all the possible parameters that go into building a Pinewood Derby car, and then he documented the results. Okay, so what did he learn after a year of testing? So here's a list of 7 of the parameters he tested and how many car lengths you would win by if you're able to perfect that specific parameter, assuming everything else was the same. So the first thing you should notice is by far the biggest contributor to increasing the speed of your car is maxing out the weight of your car at 5 ounces and then putting it in the right location towards the rear of the car. So that alone contributes to 36% of the speed of your car. And you would beat a car that had the worst possible mass